Chapter 1131. Furthermore, once Heaven Dragon City was established, it would not be so easy to destroy. Even without the protective formations, Emperor Wu would not be able to destroy Heaven Dragon City so easily. However, the construction of Heaven Dragon City was a vast undertaking. When Xiao Chun took a quick glance at it, he was deeply impressed. Not to mention the resources needed to establish a city, the formations, restrictions, astrology, geomancy, and the layout of the city were not something that just anyone could handle. There needed to be a person proficient in all aspects to be able to direct this project. Xiao Chen asked himself if he had the ability to do so. That's not right. Isn't there a girl in front of me who is proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Imochen smiled faintly and said, if Big Brother Xiao is determined to let me use the resources in the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, I can give Big Brother Xiao a rough map of Heaven Dragon City within half a month. A rough map requires half a month? Yes. That is still a conservative estimate. The complexity of Heaven Dragon City is the highest among all the cities that I have seen. If it is completed, it will be comparable to Bright Moon City, not too far off. Xiao Chen was somewhat surprised. How could Heaven Dragon City be inferior to Bright Moon City after it was completed? The Lunar Palace's reputation was much weaker than the Dragon's Gates back then. This was something that he could not accept. Imochen explained, this is very normal. After Bright Moon City was built, it had accumulated for 10,000 years. Furthermore, once Heaven Dragon City is completed, it will be comparable to these 10,000-year-old ancient cities. Since ancient times, it is the only one of its kind. Alright, I'll trouble you then. However, now that these refugees have no home to go to, how should we settle them? Seeing that Xiao Chen trusted her so much, handing over the resources of the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove to her after asking a few questions, Imochen felt very happy. She smiled and explained, everyone has their own specialties. Big Brother Xiao, there is no need to worry. Lan Xiaobai and I will handle the rest. You just broke through to great perfection, blue-robed Emperor. Time is precious. You need to comprehend more. Your strength is the foundation for how far Heavenly Star Island can go in the end. Xiao Chen was touched. The most difficult thing to find in life was a confidant. What is a bosom friend? A bosom friend is someone who understands me. Without a doubt, Imochen is such a bosom friend. Thank you. He didn't know what else to say. Everything was contained in these two words. Under the veil, Imochen smiled and said, there is no need for thanks between us. Back then, if you had not made a move in the Cloud Sea domain, it goes without saying what would have happened to me. If there's anyone thanking me, it should be me thanking you. Xiao Chen was not someone who cared about trifles. He smiled and said, let's go. Accompany me to Black Flame Island. I would like to see the hiding place of that Buddha head as soon as possible. Imochen nodded lightly. Xiao Chen summoned out the Flood Dragon War Chariot and carried the two through the clouds, heading for Black Flame Island at lightning speed. In the clouds, Xiao Chen was in the war chariot. He opened the curtains and his sharp gaze pierced through. He could vaguely see many battleships hidden in the surroundings. They were extremely careful. However, these battleships did not release any malicious intent. This was especially so when they saw the Flood Dragon War Chariot. They all fled far away. Imochen also noticed these battleships. She said, these are the major factions around Heavenly Star Island. They are all from the 9 ranks of the great families. Emperor Wu is overseeing them. It looks like they are paying a lot of attention to this battle. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze, not feeling surprised. Heavenly Star Island's foundation was there. It was a juicy piece of meat. It was impossible for these factions not to be tempted. Even if they did not dare to make a move because of the Bushan Palace and the Thunder King's name as a new faction, they still had to pay attention to this battle. After this battle, at the very least, the Blue Dragon King's fame would spread far and wide, enough to shock everyone. This would let these major factions know that even if the three holy masters did not care about Xiaochen, Heavenly Star Island was not that easy to bully. If they wanted to scheme against the Blue Dragon King, they would have to consider whether they could withstand the rage of the Blue Dragon King. 15 minutes later, the Dragon War Chariot arrived at the sea region near Black Flame Island. When Xiao Chun came out of the war chariot, he was immediately shocked by the scene before him. He saw a 9-colored light soaring into the sky from the direction of the Enlightened Sense Temple on Black Flame Island. Colorful clouds filled the sky, and golden rain covered the entire island, pattering endlessly. Black Flame Island, which was originally known for being hot and desolate, was now peaceful. Plants flourished, and hundreds of flowers bloomed. It was thriving and full of life. The ordinary people bathed in the rain all revealed excited expressions. They knelt on the ground and chanted, "Merciful Buddha." The rainwater seeped into their bones, blood, and marrow. Everyone could clearly feel their bodies feel refreshed and rejuvenated. The illnesses that had tormented them for so long vanished. All sorts of wondrous effects made them feel extremely comfortable. Xiao Chen thought to himself, this is retribution. All the vast power of faith that Zhuangxinghe absorbed over the past year or so was returned to him. After today, Zhuangxinghe's foundation here would completely crumble. Emochen stood beside Xiaochen. Having seen this scene before, she appeared rather calm. She said, actually, the ancient Buddhist teachings are not bad in the first place. They talk about karma and reincarnation, doing good deeds and accumulating virtue. Good deeds will be rewarded, and evil deeds will be punished. These are all very good teachings. Even when collecting the power of faith, they are sincere in preaching. There is no such thing as converting people, much less those evil rituals. The believers worship and make offerings, and the bodhisattvas and Buddhas listen to their prayers and send down blessings. This is a very good cycle, a good thing for ordinary people. Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. The secret canon of the Small Lane Temple had records of this as well. However, the human heart was unfathomable. There were too many temptations. Even a Buddha would find it hard to remain calm when faced with such vast power. Xiao Chen asked himself, if an ordinary person faced such a shortcut, he would find it hard to control himself. He would definitely use the power of faith to strengthen himself. Slowly, he would change his mind and convert people. Then, he would preach in a barbaric manner, slowly falling into the abyss. Xiao Chen believed that there were benevolent Buddhas and bodhisattvas. However, it was hard to say if it was the headless Buddha behind Zhuangxinghe. Come, let's go to the Enlightened Sense Temple Hall and take a look. Xiao Chen's figure flashed as he flew towards the Enlightened Sense Temple Hall. Whether it was the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's head or not, he had to search for it personally. As Xiao Chen flew, he saw all the temples and statues of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas shattering. The temples were also empty. Not only could the abbot not be seen, but the young novice monks had also fled. The believers on the island were enjoying a feast. However, to the long-term beneficiaries of the power of faith, it was a disaster. The source of faith was destroyed, and the vast power of faith that had accumulated poured out without restraint. Furthermore, the backbone of the temple was killed. This seemingly huge, fake Buddhist sect collapsed in an instant. When Xiao Chen landed in the Enlightened Sense Temple, the situation was even more dismal. The originally vast and glorious temple had collapsed. The Arhats and Bodhisattvas statues had all collapsed and shattered. Everywhere Xiao Chen looked was a scene of ruin. Life flourished everywhere on the island. However, this place, the source of the Buddhist light, was deathly silent and gloomy. The flowers and grass were withered and the trees were withered. Compared to the magnificent scene that Xiao Chen saw the last time he came here, it was like heaven and earth. When Xiao Chen arrived before the Enlightened Sense Temple Hall, the originally mysterious and unfathomable hall that Xiao Chen did not dare to enter no longer had any mysterious aura. The entire roof of the hall had been blown away. This must have been caused by the shock waves from the battle between Imochen and the abbot. The 9-colored Buddhist light came from the cracks in the rubble and shot out into the cloud. Xiao Chen threw a palm strike and swept away all the rubble. A strong palm wind picked up the rubble and flew away. A large hole appeared in the empty space in front. The source of the Buddhist light was in there. Imochen, did you go down there? Xiao Chen asked as he looked at the large hole where the Buddhist light came from. Imochen shook her head and replied, I did not have time to go down. At that time, the Buddha head flew out from there. Its mental energy injured me. Then I was busy killing some of the backbones. After I was done, I was afraid that you would worry, so I rushed back. Understanding this, Xiao Chen immediately jumped down. Imochen leaped up and followed Xiao Chen. The entrance of the cave was very deep, much deeper than what the two of them had imagined. The two of them descended for a full quarter of an hour before they stepped on a patch of black water and found themselves in a vast cave. When the two looked ahead, they saw a headless Buddha at the end of the cavern. The Buddhist light that filled the air came from this headless Buddha. Xiao Chen felt startled. This headless Buddha was clearly the same as the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's headless body that he saw in the 9 layers of purgatory. Suddenly Xiao Chen understood. That Buddha head was indeed the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's Buddha head. The Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva wanted to use the power of faith to reconstruct the Buddha body. After that, the two would merge and truly revive. However, it did not look like it would be that easy. Although the headless Buddha before Xiao Chen looked the same as the one in the 9 layers of purgatory, the might and pressure that the two gave off were completely different. However, the might and pressure from the two were completely different. The headless Buddha before Xiao Chen did not feel threatened at all. However, the Buddha in the 9 layers of purgatory was simply horrifying. Before the headless Buddha, Xiao Chen shrank infinitely, unable to resist at all. What is this? Imochen asked with an unsightly expression as she looked at the black water on the ground. Xiao Chen recovered his wits and said, This is the sea of bitterness, the prayers of the many believers. Birth, old age, sickness, and death are all in these prayers. However, the Bodhisattva here does not care at all. It draws out all the prayers in the power of faith, forming this vast sea of bitterness. Imochen looked at Xiao Chen's expression and said, Big brother Xiao, you seem to recognize this headless Buddha. Yes. I once saw the original form of this headless Buddha in the 9 layers of purgatory. Before Imochen, Xiao Chen did not hide anything. He told her everything he saw and heard. When Imochen heard that, she found it strange. She asked, Since it has its own body, why did it not go to the 9 layers of purgatory and reattach it? Xiao Chen thought of that horrifying saber light. Even after 10,000 years, it could still bring color back to the Yellow Springs realm. He said, That's impossible. The Qing Emperor left a wound on its neck. I estimate that even after 10,000 years, the saber intent still has not scattered. Reattaching it would be like sending oneself to death. Is the Qing Emperor really so strong that his saber intent does not scatter after 10,000 years? Clearly, Imochen was somewhat shocked. A saber intent that did not scatter after 10,000 years could still be so mighty. Chapter 1132. Xiao Chen nodded and said, If you saw the Qing Emperor's saber light, you would not be so shocked. Imochen entered deep thought. She watched as the 9-colored Buddhist light slowly scattered the headless Buddha's body, making it look even more withered. She asked, What should we do with this headless Buddha now? Xiao Chen paused for a moment before replying, Let it destroy itself. When the power of faith runs out, it will disappear naturally. After saying that, Xiao Chen prepared to leave. Just at this moment, something strange happened. A figure of light quickly descended from the cave entrance. Xiao Chen's eyes were sharp. He clearly saw that it was a Buddha head. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. However, he did not panic. He placed his right hand on his saber hilt and instantly shielded Imochen. The Buddha head hovered in the air, giving off an ancient aura. Its large eyes stared at Xiao Chen as if it wanted to see through all of Xiao Chen's secrets. The Buddha head spoke in a hoarse voice, "It is indeed you, the fellow with the bloodline of the Qing Emperor." Xiao Chen did not reply to it. He instantly drew the lunar shadow saber, and a resplendent saber light illuminated the dark cave. Then, he charged at the Buddha head at lightning speed. Xiao Chen was already certain that this evil Buddha was not a kind person. It was clearly not on good terms with him, so there was no need to hold back. Dang! Just as the saber light was about to strike the Buddha head, the headless Buddha body suddenly moved. It opened its hand and blocked Xiao Chen's saber light. Whoosh! Whoosh! The saber light did not stop, and the movement did not stop. Xiao Chen attacked with his full power, sending out 9 saber strikes and chopping the Buddha body, blocking the Buddha head into pieces. The Buddhist light that soared into the clouds stopped. The spiritual rain that covered the entire island also stopped. Unfortunately, this is not the immortal epoch. Otherwise, I would be able to kill someone like you with just one word. Live on properly. When you undergo your great tribulation of wind and fire, I will return the saber strike that the Qing Emperor gave me to you. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's Buddha head spoke in a somewhat cold voice. Then, it turned into a beam of light and quickly flew away. Xiao Chen naturally didn't want to let him go so easily. Putting aside the fact that the other party was a ticking time bomb, as long as she had a real body, she would be a great threat to him. Just based on the fact that she possessed numerous secrets of the ancient Buddha dimension and some secrets of the Qing Emperor, he shouldn't be allowed to leave no matter what. However, the other party had clearly come prepared. After confirming Xiao Chen's identity, they left using a secret technique, not leaving any traces for Xiao Chen to track them down. Xiao Chen chased out of the cave and found that there was no trace of the Buddha head. There was no trace of it at all, only some faint fluctuations in the space. "Did you fail to catch up?" Immortal asked after flying out of the cave. Xiao Chen sighed. He used a secret technique to break space. Without becoming Emperor Wu, there is no way to catch up to him. Immortal consoled, "There is no need to rush. It is clear that the Qing Emperor severely injured his essence 10,000 years ago. Now, he is just a stray dog. Even an ancient bodhisattva would not be a threat to you." Indeed, Xiao Chen was not in a rush. However, he felt that the other party should know some secrets of the Qing Emperor back then. If he could capture and interrogate the other party, he might gain a lot. Probably even the old item spirit in the Blue Dragon Palace did not know why the Qing Emperor went to the 6 paths of reincarnation back then. Only this fellow knew a little. However, this happened to be what Xiao Chen cared about the most. Suddenly, the mysterious Buddha head appeared on a desolate island. It opened its mouth and spat out a weak beam of light. If one looked carefully, one would discover that the weak light was actually a small person giving off a Buddhist light. If one's eyes were sharp enough, one would immediately discover that this small person was the bloody monk, Zhuang. "Master, you have seen it already. When can my physical body recover?" Zhuang asked quickly with some anxiousness in his voice. The Buddha head said coldly, "It is just an ordinary physical body. You can recover it at any time. It is just a small matter, yet you are so flustered. No wonder you cannot accomplish anything great." Zhuang clearly feared this mysterious Buddha head. He nodded in a hurry and said, "Master is right. Where should we go now? It was not easy for us to develop our foundation on Black Flame Island. If it gets destroyed, it would be too much of a pity." The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's Buddha head said indifferently, "It is just a small island. You have not seen it before. You have not seen the horrifying scene of billions of believers worshipping together during the golden age of Buddhism. This bit of foundation is nothing." However, a strange light flashed in the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's eyes. He seemed to have thought of something as he said, "I forgot. This place is an abandoned land. How could it recover to its golden age? I still have to kill the Blue Dragon King and leave this place with his luck. Only then can I return to the Buddhist sect and seek veneration from the Buddha. Master, where are we leaving? Zhuang Jinghe asked out of curiosity, feeling confused. Don't ask what you should not ask. The Buddha head snorted coldly. Suddenly, 4 or 5 cultivators arrived on the island. The Buddha's attention immediately shifted. Scarlet Bodhi leaves appeared in the Buddha's eyes, materializing an ancient Buddhist temple in the depths of his eyes. Then, he opened his mouth and sucked in. Clumps of green light appeared on the foreheads of the 4 or 5 inferior-grade martial sages. As they struggled, they were sucked into the Buddha's mouth. Then, their physical bodies fell to the ground. Go and choose one. You only have one chance to undergo dermic reincarnation. This is also your last chance. When Zhuang Jinghe heard this, he rejoiced and quickly flew over. The Buddha head opened its mouth and chanted scriptures. Ancient Buddhist scriptures came from the Buddha's mouth. Amid a Buddhist light, a corpse on the ground slowly stood up. While Zhuang Jinghe was undergoing the dermic reincarnation ritual, Shao Qin and Imochen were strolling around Black Flame Island. Strictly speaking, it could not be considered strolling around. After Zhuang Jinghe's group left, Heavenly Star Island would definitely take over the management of Black Flame Island. It was not a bad idea to inspect the island's situation in advance. Big Brother Shao, this Black Flame Island hides a peak Black Flame Earth Flame. It is the best place to build a refining pavilion. I would like to move all my clansmen here and transform it into a peak refining pavilion. Shao Chen had heard of this before. Previously, because of the 7 heroes of the dragon and other reasons, the Mo clan's clansmen had been living on a desolate island outside Heavenly Star Island's sea region. Only a small portion of them remained on Heavenly Star Island. Now that all the hostile factions near Heavenly Star Island had been cleared out, there would be no obstacles for the Mo clan to come in. Furthermore, the Mo clan was a refining clan in the first place. In the past, they were famous in the Cloud Sea domain. They had many refining masters in the clan, and they even had refining techniques passed down by their ancestors. As long as they had sufficient resources and a peak location, it would not be difficult to build a refining pavilion that was not inferior to a Holy Land's. Shao Qin appeared somewhat distracted as he thought of something even further in the future. He thought of his clansmen in the distant Sky Dome realm. Never mind. Thinking about it now is still too far away. The clansmen of the Qing Emperor's descendants, returning to the Kunlun realm, would be much more complicated than the Mo clans. There would also be more unpredictable factors. It would be better to wait for the Heaven Dragon City to be completed before going to the lower realm and fetching the Shao clan up, returning them to where they belonged in the first place. Otherwise, without any guarantee of safety, Shao Qin would find it hard to rest assured. No matter how worried he was in the Sky Dome realm, Emperor Wu could not go there. With the Haotian sect's branch and the mysterious Great Qin nation's royal court guarding that place, it would be safer than the Kunlun realm. Big Brother Shao, what's wrong? Imochen asked out of concern when she saw Shao Chen's distracted expression, like he was thinking of something else. Shao Chen recovered his wits and smiled. It's fine. Can the transportation formation on our Heavenly Star Island send us to the lower realm? Imochen said, it can. The Bushin Palace has a transportation formation in the lower realm as well. However, such a transportation formation requires a lot of resources. I understand. Shao Chen understood. Resources were not a problem. If he wanted to go to the Sky Dome realm in the future, it would be much more convenient. After chatting for a while longer, the two rode the dragon chariot back. After saying goodbye, Shao Chen returned to the summit to comprehend the many benefits of advancing to great perfection blue-robed emperor. Imochen assisted Lan Xiaobai in sorting out the refugees in the original Heavenly Star City. She also had the many resources in the Dragon's Gate treasure trove. Shao Chen and Lan Xiaobai would also be in charge of judging contributions and distributing rewards. Xiao Chen was very clear on the principle of not doubting the people he used. This way, he could relax and also ease the pressure on others. 7 days later, Xiao Chen and Elder Qin sat at the summit, drinking tea and discussing the Tao, exchanging their experiences in the martial Tao. In terms of experience, Elder Qin had stopped at Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor for several decades. Indeed, Xiao Chen could learn many things. The Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor can be considered to have reached a higher level on the path of forging the Emperor's Bridge. With the Heavenly Seal, it is much easier to use the heavenly laws. Compared to the Small Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor, there is a vast difference. Of course, you are an exception, Elder Qin said with a somewhat helpless smile as he took a sip of tea. Breaking before establishing. Before advancing to the Blue-Robed Emperor, you accumulated 10,000 heavenly sage laws. Since ancient times, I really cannot think of anyone with such a horrifying cultivation. This also gives you the capital to kill opponents of higher cultivation. After sighing, Elder Qin continued, to think that I spent 100 years in the Blue-Robed Emperor realm. Now I have only 3,000 heavenly laws, not even a third of it. Xiao Chen put down his teacup and smiled. Elder Qin is being too humble. Old Qin's heavenly laws are much denser than mine. The power of the world that you can drive is not much weaker than mine. These words were not too humble. The other party's cultivation was still much denser than the newly advanced Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor. The density of heavenly laws was far inferior to Xiao Chen's. What Xiao Chen was strong in were the quantity of his heavenly laws and the purity of his purple thunder divine incantation. Elder Qin, how is it to cultivate a soul with heavenly laws? Can you explain it to this junior in detail? Xiao Chen asked humbly. Elder Qin took a sip of tea and smiled. The cultivation of the Small Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor and the Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor is very profound. However, in the end, it is still about resources. If you do not have enough resources, you can accumulate them with time. It is not too difficult and can be considered uneventful. However, in reality, 90% of the Blue-Robed Emperors are stuck at peak Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperors, unable to advance further. This is because there is no way to cultivate a soul with heavenly laws. If nothing unexpected happens, this old man will be stuck at this stage as well. Xiao Chen frowned and asked, is it that difficult? Elder Qin nodded and said, this stage has nothing to do with resources. Even if you had all the resources in the world, it would be useless. You can only rely on yourself to comprehend and explore. Cultivating a soul with the heavenly seal is simply merging your own soul into the heavenly seal and turning it into the vague form of the heart of an emperor. Chapter 1133. You should know that after you become Emperor Wu, you will reconstruct your golden body. At that time, physical injuries will no longer be able to kill Emperor Wu. As long as the heart of an emperor remains, it will be hard to sever his vitality. Now you understand why this step is so difficult. Xiao Chen's comprehension ability was startling. Naturally, he understood immediately. Cultivating a soul from the heavenly realm already touched upon the core of Emperor Wu. This was directly related to the heart of an emperor. It would be difficult even if one did not want it to be. Elder Qin said unhurriedly, the path to martial emperor is not simple. This step already stops 90% of the blue-robed emperors. After that, the great tribulation of wind and fire stops another 90%. It would not be too much to describe the cultivators of my Kunlun realm as billions or billions. We have no lack of geniuses. However, the number of people who can break through to Emperor Wu every 500 years can be counted on two hands. Every Emperor Wu, no matter how strong or weak, is in existence with astonishing luck in the Kunlun realm. Since ancient times, countless people have died on the path to martial emperor. However, there is still an unending stream of people advancing. Of the 10 billion cultivators, the The number who could become Emperor Wu every 500 years could be counted on 2 hands. Xiao Chen sighed. The success of a general was built on the bones of 10,000 people. This probability could not even be described as 1 in 100 million. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had less than 4 years left. At the summit, Xiao Chen and Elder Qin chatted for a long time. They even exchanged moves. After exchanging a few moves, Elder Qin sighed. Now that the age of geniuses was in full swing, there were more demonic geniuses than the last. Xiao Chen was a demonic genius among demonic geniuses. The number of people who advanced to martial emperor in the past 100 years probably surpassed the total number of people who advanced to martial emperor in the past few thousand years. However, when it came to Xiao Chen, Elder Qin could not help showing a look of pity in his eyes. Xiao Chen, my life is not considered long, but I have lived for several hundred years and seen countless geniuses. Many outstanding talents died prematurely due to various reasons. Some were too sharp, some were overzealous, some were arrogant, and some were too engrossed in their desires. You are the only exception. What a pity, Elder Qin could not help saying. Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, if I had not ignored the consequences and tempered my physical body back then, or if I had not tempered my quintessence twice when I was a martial sage, my physical body would not have such problems now. However, if that were really the case, I would have nothing. I would not be able to defeat those outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent, and I would not be able to sweep through everyone during the king conferral ceremony, obtaining overwhelming luck. Everything in the world has its cause and effect. Nothing is certain. It's best not to think too much and look forward. It is best not to martial Emperor Wu. Xiao Xiaochen said, I know. Martial Emperor Wu are the emperor. Martial Wu emperor, Xiao Wu Chen Wu emperor, and Wu will not to use it. To Wu we will. We will only be able to show off before the blue-robed emperor. Compared to the true Emperor Wu, it is not worth mentioning. I will not choose this path. Elder Qin was not surprised by Xiao Chen's answer. He smiled faintly and said, that is all I have of the cultivation experience of the great perfection blue-robed emperor. I will not disturb your cultivation any longer. If you need anything, you can look for me at any time. Elder Qin was not surprised by Xiao Chen's answer. He smiled faintly and said, this is all the cultivation experience I have for a great perfection quasi-emperor. I will not disturb your cultivation any longer. If you have any problems, you can look for me at any time. In the end, the cultivation of the great perfection blue-robed emperor was still a matter of accumulating resources. After reaching the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor, he would start cultivating the soul, merging the soul with the heavenly seal. That was the true dividing line. In the end, the cultivation of the great perfection blue-robed emperor depended on accumulating resources. When one reached the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor, one would start to cultivate the soul, merging the soul with the heavenly seal. That was the true dividing line. However, Xiao Chen had just reached the great perfection blue-robed emperor. He was still a long way from the peak, so he needed a vast amount of resources to cultivate. Xiao Chen had used about 1% of the King Spirit veins in the treasure trove to break through the bottleneck. Most of the rest had not been used. Logically speaking, with such a King Spirit vein, Xiao Chen did not lack resources. However, he felt that using this King Spirit vein to cultivate was too wasteful. There was no quality-price ratio. Even the Holy Lands and Immortal Holy Lands that had existed for tens of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years did not have many King Spirit veins. Even if they included the spares, they would not have more than 5. It was not worth it to use this King Spirit vein on his own blue-robed emperor. As long as Xiao Chen broke through the bottleneck, he would have more than enough Holy Spirit veins to satisfy his need. Xiao Chen wanted to leave this King Spirit vein for the future Dragon's Gate, to make it a capital that could rival a Holy Land. To find another King Spirit vein, He needed to be as strong as a sovereign martial emperor at the very least. Xiao Chun still remembered the scene of the Northern Sea Alliance turning out in full force for the sake of subduing what he suspected to be a King Spirit Vein. If a King Spirit Vein really appeared, the Northern Sea Alliance's sovereign martial emperor would definitely come out to prevent other factions from snatching it. I have to find a new Holy Spirit Vein. I have nearly used up all the records on the vellum. I will have to rely on my dragon-seeking art later. A light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. He thought of making a trip to the Black Sea to look for Ba Tuesday. He wanted to see if he could find some secrets of the Yuan clan from the corpse that Ba Tu had obtained. This would allow Xiao Chen's dragon-seeking art to improve further. At that time, he would be more confident of finding a Holy Spirit Vein. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen did not think too much for now. He sat cross-legged on the summit and started to cultivate, stabilizing his great perfection blue-robed emperor cultivation. Time flashed. Soon, half a month went by. Xiao Chen's great perfection blue-robed emperor cultivation had stabilized. Now, he could control the heavenly seal as he pleased. With a thought, the dragon-shaped heavenly seal could activate all 10,000 heavenly laws. In an instant, he could bring out all the power of the world that he could. As the heavenly seal formed, Xiao Chen's comprehension of the world deepened. The world was no longer as fixed and unmoving as before. He could clearly feel the movement of the entire world. He could vaguely see the core laws of this universe, space and time, which were the lines of the chessboard of fate. However, he could only vaguely see them. He could not change these two great laws. This was especially so for the time laws. They were even more profound and ever-changing than the space laws, unfathomable. During this period, Emotion came by once. She had already completed the sketch of the Heaven Dragon City. Based on Emochen's estimates, the construction of the city could be completed within 2 years using 1 million manpower. Furthermore, with Emochen's ability to manage and command, it would be very fast. If it were someone else, they would need to coordinate with the other refiners, formation masters, and geomancers. That would take even longer. They might not even be able to complete it in 10 years. The refugees were relocated to the other small cities on Heavenly Star Island, as well as the 7 satellite islands. There was no need to doubt Lan Xiaobai's and Emochen's abilities in this aspect. The subsidiary islands that the other factions occupied were also taken over in an orderly manner. Heavenly Star Island's development entered a new trajectory, developing at a high speed. Everything proceeded smoothly and orderly. Now that Xiao Chun had some free time, he started refining medicinal pills. This was the heavenly origin pill that he promised to refine for the holy daughter, Yu Bingyun. After returning to Heavenly Star Island, Xiao Chun had been very busy and did not have much time. Since Xiao Chun had some free time, he switched to helping Yu Bingyun refine the heavenly origin pill. After all, he could not break his promise. The refinement process did not go smoothly. However, Xiao Chun was not in a rush. After all, the other party had prepared 100 sets of ingredients. There was no fear of failure. He would succeed one day. After 78 failures, Xiao Chun finally succeeded in refining this heavenly origin pill. Lord Blue Dragon King, the city lord says that there are honored guests visiting and invites you to the palace. A youth rushed up from the foot of the mountain nimbly. He had an expression of worship as he spoke respectfully to Xiao Chun. This youth was one of the young disciples that you taught. Xiao Chun could tell from his attire. These youths were all seedlings that Xiao Chun had picked from the ordinary people's clans. Their talent was pretty good, and they would be able to take on heavy responsibilities in the future. Xiao Chun put away the medicinal pill in his hand and rewarded the youth with some things. Then, the youth left happily. When regular people came to visit, Lan Xiaobai would not disturb him. This person probably had some status. Who could it be? Feeling curious, Xiao Chun pushed off the ground and flew towards the palace in the mountain. In a few breaths, Xiao Chun arrived outside the palace. When the disciples guarding the door saw him, they immediately bowed in greeting. Xiao Chen calmed his emotions and walked in calmly. He discovered that there were many people in the palace, but their attire was not the same. However, their cultivations were all at the peak of the great perfection blue-robed emperor. Furthermore, they were all aware that they could not merge their souls with the heavenly seal, so they focused on tempering their heavenly laws to raise their combat prowess. These people had remained at the peak for at least 100 years. Not only were their heavenly laws incredibly dense, but they were also purer. Their strength was unfathomable. The instant Xiao Chen stepped into the palace, he immediately felt several gazes probing him. When they saw that Xiao Chen was only a newly advanced great perfection blue-robed emperor, doubt flashed in their eyes. Lan Xiaobai, who was entertaining this group of people, immediately sent a voice projection when Xiao Chen came over. Xiao Chen, these are the vice sect masters of the nearby 9 ranks of the great families. On the surface, they are here to pay a visit out of courtesy, to befriend you. In reality, they do not have good intentions. They are here to probe us. As the saying went, those who come do not have good intentions, and those who are kind do not come. Xiao Chen could more or less guess the purpose of these people. After he heard Lan Xiaobai's voice projection, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Everyone, sorry for being late. The Blue Dragon King is too polite." Since they were here to pay a visit to Heavenly Star Island, they still had to show basic courtesy. These vice sect masters of the 9 ranks of the great families all stood up and returned the greeting. There were many of the 9 ranks of the great families in the heavenly starry ocean. As long as they had Emperor Wu, a sect with a Holy Spirit vein, and 2,000 disciples, they could be considered one of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, most of the nearby 9 ranks of the great families did not have any accumulations. Their inheritances would not exceed 1,000 years. Compared to the peak 9 ranks of the great families like the Haotian sect, there was a huge difference. Based on the vice sect masters seated here, they were merely peak great perfection quasi-emperors, so Xiao Chen could make some guesses. Based on what Xiao Chen knew, the vice sect masters of the Haotian sect were all minor heavenly sovereigns. Furthermore, there would only be one Emperor Wu. As far as Xiao Chen knew, the vice sect masters of the Haotian sect were already consummation blue-robed emperors many years ago. After the previous sect master became a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, he retired. There were still many supreme elders who were strong and had deep accumulations, having passed down their legacies for more than 10,000 years. Chapter 1134. As they walked forward, Xiao Chen sat in the middle and picked up his teacup. Then, he said indifferently, "Sorry, Heavenly Star Island just went through a great calamity. I do not have much to entertain you all with. If you all have a purpose, just say it." The several old men sitting on both sides were stunned. According to the rules of this place, when the host picked up his teacup, it meant that he was sending off the guests. When they heard Xiao Chen's words, it was clear that he was impatient and did not beat around the bush. Everyone could not help but turn silent. The spacious hall was quiet and peaceful. Lan Xiaobai found it funny. Xiao Chen was really Xiao Chen. He knew that this group of people came with ill intentions. He did not bother with pleasantries at all, getting straight to the point, not playing by the rules. Ha! Unexpectedly, at such a young age, the Blue Dragon King's temper is not small at all. What is the meaning of this? Sending off the guests with tea? A gray-robed old man on the right, furthest from Xiao Chen, asked with a superficial smile. Lan Xiaobai sent a voice projection. This is the Fire Beacon Sect's vice sect master, Qian Zongqiao. He is considered a powerful person, especially with his palm strike. He is very incredible and famous in our sea region. Xiao Chen understood and ignored this person. He said indifferently, Heavenly Star Island just went through a great calamity. However, we also resolved some conflicts and took over all the subsidiary island. I am very clear on what you are here for. Since you are not going to say it, I will say it for you. You are just here to probe out the situation, to see if I, Xiao Qin, can suppress such a large area. Then, to see if you have a chance to get some benefits for yourselves. The expressions of the others froze. After Xiao Qin said what they were thinking, they all felt somewhat unnatural. Only the Fire Beacon Sect's Vice-Sect Master, Qian Zongqiao, laughed loudly and said, "Blue Dragon King, you must be joking. Our Fire Beacon Sect is here to discuss cooperation." Xiao Qin smiled coldly and asked, "What kind of cooperation?" "Naturally, it is a cooperation that is beneficial to both sides. Since Stellar Sky City was destroyed, it will require a lot of resources to rebuild it. I am representing the Fire Beacon Sect to send money to the Blue Dragon King." Right after Qian Zongqiao spoke, he waved his hand, and a pile of black astral coins flew out from his spatial ring. The faint light overlapped, dazzling the eyes. "There should be about 5 million of them. Here is 5 million black astral coins. Our Fire Beacon Sect wishes to purchase Black Flame Island from the Blue Dragon King," Qian Zongqiao said casually. Wanting to buy Black Flame Island with 5 million black astral coins was simply daylight robbery. Bang! Bang! Seeing that Qian Zongqiao had made his intentions clear, the other 8 old men made their moves as well. Piles of black astral coins appeared in the hall, reaching 45 million black astral coins. This group of people had a startlingly large appetite. All that was left was the main island of Heavenly Star Island. They would have emptied out Xiao Chen's conferred land. 45 million black astral coins was already a huge sum. Even the peak blue-robed emperor would only have so much. Some of the weaker rank 8 sects would not have more than this sum. Some might even have less. Regular outstanding youths would find it hard to remain calm when they saw such a lineup. Their auras would be completely suppressed. However, who was Xiao Qin? He had even seen 1 billion black astral coins in the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove. This amount of money was like a drizzle to him. Xiao Qin wanted to use his wealth to suppress others and occupy the island in his conferred land, leaving others speechless. This was a brilliant move. Even if the Bushan Palace pursued the matter, Xiao Qin could say that he had used money to buy the island. This would leave others speechless, and they could only blame Xiao Qin for not living up to expectations. However, it was still the same as before. Playing this move before the rich Xiao Qin was like playing house. It was extremely laughable. A trace of mockery flashed in Qian Zongqiao's eyes. To think that a brat with no hair on his mouth wants to compete with us veterans. He is really naive. Qian Zongqiao put down his teacup and said indifferently, "I believe that the Blue Dragon King has never seen so much money before. With so many black astral coins, it is sufficient for you to rebuild 3 heavenly star cities." When Xiao Qin heard this, he could not help laughing softly. Competing with me in wealth? What could be funnier than this? Money came like a river and went like water. Before obtaining the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, the black astral coins in Xiao Chen's hands were already more than the pile of money here. Furthermore, after obtaining the Dragon's Gate's treasure trove, Heavenly Star Island's accumulated wealth was no weaker than the 9 ranks of the great families. If Xiao Chen included that King Spirit vein, even the Holy Lands would not dare to boast so shamelessly before him. "What are you laughing at?" When Qian Zongqiao saw the mocking smile on Xiao Chen's face, he felt a strange rage. Seated in the middle, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "I'm laughing at your shameless boasting. You only took out 5 million black astral coins and still dare to boast before me, saying that you want to buy Black Flame Island. You say that I have never seen money before. I'm afraid that you do not know what true wealth is. How arrogant! How many black astral coins can you take out? You?" Before Qian Zongqiao could finish speaking, his jaw dropped. The shock in his eyes was so great that he could not continue. There was no other reason. Xiao Qin waved his hand, and piles of black astral coins appeared. There was a total of 9 piles. Each pile was twice the amount of black astral coins that the 9 ranks of the great families took out. There was no more, no less. Xiao Chun took out a total of 90 million black astral coins alone. If money can solve everything, then I will buy your entire fire beacon sect with these 90 million black astral coins. Do you agree? Xiao Chun shouted as he stood up. An overwhelming aura pressed down on Qian Zongqiao. The 9 old men felt stifled in their hearts. Their thoughts went wild, and they found it somewhat difficult to control themselves. Originally, they wanted to use a large number of black astral coins to crush Xiao Chen's will. Who could have imagined that Xiao Chen would turn the tables on them? This shocked them, and they immediately fell silent. Their auras were completely suppressed by Xiao Chen. This was especially so for Qian Zongqiao. His face alternated between red and green, feeling very sullen. When faced with Xiao Chen's interrogation, he felt stifled, not knowing how to reply. Damn it! No matter what, you have to sell Black Flame Island to my fire beacon sect. You have to sell it whether you want to or not. Unable to think of anything to say, Qian Zongqiao directly stated his purpose, shedding all pretense of cordiality. Xiao Chen smiled faintly, becoming even more at ease. He slowly walked down and said calmly, "What's wrong? Are you trying to force me to sell it?" Qian Zongqiao calmed down and remembered the sect master's instructions. He should do his best not to shed all pretense of cordiality. At the very least, he should not do so openly. He could not leave any room for discussion. After calming himself, Qian Zongqiao said coldly, "I don't dare to. Our fire beacon sect is rather famous. We never do things like force. I have long heard of the Blue Dragon King's unparalleled glory, instantly defeating all the outstanding talents of the world in one move at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Do you dare to make a bet with this Qian?" Xiao Chun asked indifferently, "What do you want to bet?" Qian Zongqiao replied coldly, "You instantly defeated all the outstanding talents of the world in one move at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. I will bet with you in one move as well. We will only compete in one move. Whoever is at a disadvantage will be the loser. If you lose, you will sell Black Flame Island to me. Don't say that my fire beacon sect is forcing you to sell it. If I lose, I will apologize, and the fire beacon sect will not seek trouble for Heavenly Star Island anymore." The moment Qian Zongqiao said that, the crowd burst into an uproar. Right now, Xiao Chen was only an early-stage Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor. As for Qian Zongqiao, he was at the peak of the Great Perfection Blue-Robed Emperor, having cultivated for 100 years. Furthermore, Qian Zongqiao's palm technique made him famous among the many factions in the nearby sea region. His palm contained a boundless sea of fire and a horrifying explosive force. He had even smashed a small perfection blue-robed emperor to death with one palm strike. "Blue Dragon King, do you dare to agree?" Seeing that Xiao Chen was only an early-stage Great Perfection blue-robed emperor, Qian Zongqiao felt very confident. He stepped forward and pressed on. Lan Xiaobai stopped Qian Zongqiao and said, "Xiao Chen, don't fall for his trick. The cultivation technique, martial technique, and killing moves he cultivates are all explosive. When he fights with others, if he cannot severely injure his opponent with one palm strike, he will quickly flee." Lan Xiaobai had a very clear understanding of Qian Zongqiao's information, so he advised Xiao Chen not to be rash. Xiao Chen understood what Lan Xiaobai meant. Some people were stuck at a certain bottleneck for their entire lives, unable to improve. After that, they would take an unconventional path and think of other ways to raise their combat prowess. This Qian Zongqiao before Xiao Chen was one of those people. He focused all his attention on how to increase his explosive power. Qian Zongqiao wanted to use money to suppress Xiao Chen but ended up being humiliated by Xiao Chen. So, he thought of this method to regain his momentum. If Xiao Chen did not agree, he would be seen as a coward. Qian Zongqiao would use this to spread the rumor. Furthermore, Qian Zongqiao would continuously seek trouble for him in the future. If Xiao Chen agreed, he would be playing into Qian Zongqiao's hands. Qian Zongqiao would not lose out no matter what. Waving his hand, Xiao Chun told Lan Xiaobai not to say anything else. There were so many vice sect masters watching. If Xiao Chun could resolve this matter well, he would be able to deter the surrounding factions, which would be of great benefit to Heavenly Star Island. Even though Xiao Chun knew that Qian Zongqiao was trying to goad him, he still had to go. The most important thing was that Xiao Chun was not afraid of competing in explosive power. If it were a fair fight, he would drag it out. Given the depth of Qian Zongqiao's cultivation, Xiao Chun would be at a disadvantage. It would be much more difficult to defeat Qian Zongqiao, and he would have to pay a higher price as well. A clash of moves was exactly what Xiao Chun wanted. Qian Zongqiao, who did not know that he had run into trouble, smiled and said, "How is it? Don't tell me that you, the bona fide Blue Dragon King, are afraid of an old man like me?" "I promise you." Xiao Chun smiled faintly as he stared at Qian Zongqiao. Qian Zongqiao could not blame him for seeking his own humiliation. Discussions immediately broke out in the hall. The other 8 old men were all very surprised. After learning about Qian Zongqiao and his cultivation, Xiao Chun still chose to agree. The others withdrew and cleared out the black astral coins, creating an empty space. The buildings in the hall all had restrictions infused into them, which could endure a battle at the level of the blue-robed emperor. As long as it was not a drawn-out battle, they could settle it in one move. Lan Xiaobai knew that he could not dissuade Xiao Chun, so he sighed and retreated to the back as well. The Blue Dragon King truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. Unfortunately, you are too young. Today I'll tell you that the older, the wiser. After Qian Zongqiao spoke, he raised his leg and took a step forward. He did not move at all, but he arrived before Xiao Chun in an instant. Then, he threw a palm strike. The instant Qian Zongqiao sent out his palm strike, the aura of a boundless sea of fire erupted. Chapter 1135. It looked like there was no build-up. However, the mysterious phenomenon that erupted was shockingly horrifying. Behind Qian Zongqiao, the power of the world turned into a sea of flames that looked like a real sea. Waves overlapped, boundless, unfathomable, and immeasurable. Furthermore, based on the minute slow motion, one could see that every time Qian Zongqiao's palm moved forward, a flaming wave would rise from the sea, one wave after another, overlapping. In the time it took for Qian Zongqiao to stretch out his hand, tens of thousands of flaming waves overlapped. When it came into contact with Xiao Chun's palm, all the energy would erupt in an instant. Qian Zongqiao lived up to his name. As a peak expert with explosive power, Qian Zongqiao had indeed broadened Xiao Chun's horizons. He let Xiao Chun know that none of these old blue-robed emperor, who had been stuck at peak great perfection for hundreds of years, were simple. However, that was all. This move was not enough to defeat Xiao Chun. With a thought, the dragon-shaped heavenly seal breathed. The 10,000 heavenly laws in Xiao Chun's body instantly stirred up, not stopping for a moment. The mysterious phenomenon triggered by the 10,000 heavenly laws stirring up the power of the world at the same time. It was like 10,000 true dragons drilled out of Xiao Chun's body. As the 10,000 dragons soared, cracks appeared in the buildings behind him. These buildings, which could withstand a strike from the blue-robed emperor, started cracking under the mysterious phenomenon triggered by Xiao Chun. A sorrowful aura lingered in the great hall amid the scarlet flowers. As a blood moon soared, Xiao Chun used the 1,000-year death to clash with Qian Zongqiao's palm strike, the boundless sea of flames. Boom! The instant the two palms clashed, the roof of the great hall was blown off and shattered into powder. The destructive power of the aftershocks from the two palms far surpassed everyone's expectations. The buildings that could withstand the might of the blue-robed emperor's battle were destroyed in half by the two palms. The two were competing in explosive power. From start to finish, their moves were clean and efficient, without any flourishes. The victor was decided in one breath. Xiao Chun didn't move from his original position. He slowly retracted his palm, causing his clothes and hair to slowly fall to the ground. Qian Zongqiao vomited a mouthful of blood and took 100 steps back before falling to the ground. He looked at Shao Chen angrily and coughed out another mouthful of blood. He pointed at Shao Chen and cursed, "You tricked me!" Strictly speaking, Shao Chen did scam him, but he was the one who picked this trap. In the Four Seas Hero Gathering, he dared to challenge all the outstanding talents and chose to decide the victor in one move. One of the main reasons was that his forte was the explosive power of killer move. In less than half a month after advancing to great perfection Quasi-Emperor, Shao Chen could instantly drive 10,000 heavenly laws with a thought, releasing and withdrawing them as he pleased. Qian Zongqiao dared to compete with Shao Chen in explosive power, wanting to decide victory in one move. If this was not seeking his own humiliation, what was? Lan Xiaobai heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he stepped forward and said, "Sect Master Qian, I hope that you will abide by your promise. The people of the Fire Beacon sect will not appear in the sea region of Heavenly Star Island in the future." The other fellow cultivators heard it for themselves. Qian Zongqiao found it hard to express his bitterness. He had not expected that after living for several hundred years, he would fall to the hands of a junior. Even though Qian Zongqiao clearly held an absolute advantage, his expression did not change at all before the battle started. It was like he was pretending. Qian Zongqiao stood up and walked over to the black astral coins that he had tossed out. He prepared to put away the black astral coins and leave quickly. This time, he had completely embarrassed himself. "Wait!" Shao Chen shouted coldly, stopping Qian Zongqiao's actions. Qian Zongqiao demanded angrily, "What do you want?" "I don't want to do anything. This hall is riddled with restrictions, and it is costly to build. You even blew off the roof, and you want to leave for nothing?" Shao Chen said unhurriedly. "You have to leave behind these 5 million black astral coins. You are twisting words and forcing logic." Shao Chen retorted indifferently, "That's right. I am twisting words and forcing logic. Whoever tries to reason with me, Shao Chen, will do so. I will do so openly and openly. However, if anyone tries to be unreasonable with me, thinking of forcefully buying and selling or using force to bully others, I, Shao Chen, will be even more unreasonable than them." Right after Shao Chen spoke, he threw another palm strike. Before Qian Zongqiao could reply, he directly sent him flying, not giving him any face at all. The other 8 old men immediately exchanged glances. Shao Chen's forcefulness and his words were clearly directed at them. Just as these old men were feeling uneasy, wondering if Shao Chen would snatch back their black astral coins, Shao Chen smiled and said, "Everyone, are you not going to take back your black astral coins?" Shao Chen smiled and said, "Everyone, are you not going to take back your black astral coins?" When the group heard this, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they quickly took back the 5 million black astral coins that they had tossed out. When the group heard this, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they quickly took back the 5 million black astral coins that they had tossed out. After these old men took back their black astral coins, Shao Chen sent out a palm strike. Amid a loud sound, the pile of black astral coins that Qian Zongqiao left behind turned into dust. 5 million black astral coins turned to dust before the eyes of these old men. This sight stunned them into stupefaction. 5 million black astral coins was a significant sum for any of the blue-robed emperors. However, Shao Chen did not even blink, directly shattering it with one palm strike. What does this mean? Everyone thought to themselves. These old men were all experienced people who had lived for several hundred years. They quickly understood what Shao Chen meant. This was Shao Chen expressing his stance. Shao Chen did not care about 5 million black astral coins. He wanted Qian Zongqiao to leave behind these black astral coins to make the other party pay the price. Anyone who wanted to target Heavenly Star Island needed to be mentally prepared to pay the price. Otherwise, they would end up like this pile of black astral coins before them. After the vice-sect masters of the 9 ranks of the great families reacted, they immediately smiled and started chatting with Shao Chen. They all promised that they would not seek trouble for Heavenly Star Island and that this matter was just a misunderstanding. After seeing Shao Chen's strength, it would not be wise for them to try anything. Although the 9 ranks of the great families had Emperor Wu holding down the fort, and Shao Chen was definitely not a match for them, Emperor Wu could not possibly remain in his sect at all times. People like Shao Chen who offended Shao Chen would take advantage of the fact that Emperor Wu was not around to seek trouble for him every 2 or 3 days, causing everyone to panic. It was not the first time that such a large sect was killed until only a general was left. Those who had nothing to lose were not afraid of slippers. If both sides suffered, it would not be good for either side. The most important thing was that Shao Chen was rather clever. He only taught Qian Zongqiao a lesson. He did not make things difficult for the other old men who took out their black astral coins. This was considered as not shedding all pretense. This made it much easier to talk to them. I'll take my leave first. In the future, if the Blue Dragon King has time, you can come to our sect for a visit and improve our relationship. Since the roof of the Great Hall had been torn off, it was clearly not suitable for them to remain for long. After everyone expressed their stance, the various old men got up and prepared to leave. Lan Xiaobai heaved a sigh of relief at the side. This matter was finally resolved. One could not be too polite to such people. The weaker one was, the more others would think that one was easy to bully. Shao Chen had handled the situation appropriately. He had displayed his strength without offending everyone. Just at this moment, a strong mental pressure swept out in all directions. Everyone on Heavenly Star Island felt like a pair of ruthless eyes were staring at them. Suddenly, they did not dare to move at all. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. They all felt fear in their hearts for some reason. This gaze seemed to sweep through the entire island before focusing on Shao Chen. This made the others release their bated breath. This is the might and pressure of Emperor Wu. The group of old men in the Great Hall were very knowledgeable and quickly determined the strength of this newcomer. Could it be that Qian Zongqiao is unconvinced and got his sect master to come personally? It does not seem like it. Furthermore, that is impossible. The Fire Beacon sect's sect master would not dare to ignore Bushan Palace. Furthermore, this time, Qian Zongqiao messed things up. He is not in the right at all. Given the character of the Fire Beacon sect's sect master, even if he came, he would be trying to mend the relationship. The most important thing is that this might does not seem like the might and pressure of a minor heavenly Emperor Wu. It is much stronger than the Fire Beacon sect's sect masters. The expressions of the few old men changed as they discussed in soft voices. They could not guess which martial emperor came. Who would be so bold as to come here with Emperor Wu's cultivation? After all, Shao Chen was the Thunder King's favored Blue Dragon King. This was Bushan Palace's conferred land. Even if Shao Chen coveted the resources here and sent a group of subordinates over, when Bushan Palace investigated, they could still say that Shao Chen was not as skilled as others. If Shao Chen could not defeat cultivators of the same cultivation and was not worthy of occupying this sea region, Bushan Palace would have nothing to say. If Shao Chen personally came, he clearly did not conform to some secret rules. Was he not mocking the fact that Bushan Palace had no one? Bushan Palace could not just sit back and watch. Otherwise, they would lose face, the entire Bushan Palace. Lan Xiaobai's heart sank. He more or less guessed who had come. He frowned heavily. This would not be easy to deal with. Big trouble was coming. Back then, Shao Chen had directly killed the purple-clad man of the 7 heroes of the dragon. This time, it was probably the purple-clad man's father, the purple-clad marquis, who had come personally. Shao Chen felt extremely uncomfortable enduring the huge might. His legs turned soft and he nearly knelt down. The difference in cultivation was too great. Just the formless might was unblockable. Chi. At the crucial moment, little yellow feather flew out of the immortal spirit ring and landed on Xiao Chen's shoulder. It used its holy beast bloodline to share some of the pressure for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen flicked his finger and discovered that he could move. With a thought, a golden sage feather appeared in his hand and hid it in his sleeve. This was the last resort of the golden crow race. At a crucial moment, it could severely injure Emperor Wu in exchange for a chance to live. This was Xiao Chen's greatest trump card. A sharp-eyed person recognized little yellow feather on Xiao Chen's shoulder and cried out in shock, "The golden crow holy beast!" This was a legendary holy beast of the immortal epoch, possessing a noble bloodline. It only existed in ancient texts, rarely seen. Yet, Xiao Chen had this golden crow as a pet. Hu Qi. The space in the hall tore easily, and an imposing middle-aged man wearing purple dragon robes and battle armor walked out with large strides. His aura was extraordinary, and an intimidating pressure was emitted from his body. The purple-clad Marquis. Astonishment came one after another. The martial emperor who came was actually Neptune's old subordinate, the current purple-clad Marquis. He was a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, a true peak character of the Western Sea. Chapter 1136. The purple-clad Marquis faction was also one of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, in terms of accumulations, the purple-clad Marquis faction was much stronger than the 9 ranks of the great families. Even if the major sects worked together, they would barely be able to deal with the purple-clad Marquis. Furthermore, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace supported him. When the old men saw this scene, they could not help but wonder. The purple-clad Marquis personally came with a hostile expression. Something major must have happened. Xiao Chen was probably in trouble. Another variable appeared in Heavenly Star Island. Primordial Golden Crow brat, you are really overflowing with luck. You can even subdue such a mythical holy beast. I won't speak any nonsense. You should know what I am here for. You are probably mentally prepared. The purple-clad Marquis glanced at the ferocious-looking little yellow feather on Xiao Chen's shoulder. Then, he shifted his gaze to Xiao Chen and asked unhurriedly. After the initial panic, Xiao Chen had already calmed down. He replied indifferently, "How can a major character like Senior have anything to do with me? If Senior has anything to say, just say it. This Junior is all ears." The purple-clad Marquis did not say anything. However, those old men were startled. To think that Xiao Chen dared to speak to a greater heavenly Emperor Wu like that. As long as the other party wanted to, the purple-clad Marquis could instantly kill Xiao Chen in one breath. The difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth, like clouds and mud. Any technique, will, or martial technique would be like fleeting clouds before the purple-clad Marquis. Indeed, you are certain that I do not dare to kill you. Who knew, the purple-clad Marquis would laugh when he heard this, looking incredibly amiable. However, after a while, his expression turned cold. He said in a frosty voice, "However, you are just seeking trouble by showing off your pride before a greater heavenly emperor." With each word, the purple-clad Marquis's expression turned colder. The entire Heavenly Star Island started to tremble intensely as he spoke. The clouds pressed down like the sky was falling. When the purple-clad Marquis finished speaking, an overwhelming pressure bore down on Xiao Chen. The air nearly froze. Everyone could feel Purple Marquis's monstrous rage, and they trembled in fear, not even daring to breathe loudly. It was true that Purple Marquis couldn't kill Xiao Chen, but he could teach him a lesson and beat him up. As long as Xiao Chen didn't die, there wouldn't be too much trouble. Xiao Chen's attitude was indeed asking for trouble. The group of old men all thought that he was courting death. In front of the great emperor, one should display humility. How could one act so casually? This was simply a great disrespect, and one could only blame oneself for any consequences. Despite the terrifying atmosphere, Xiao Chen did not show any signs of backing down. he said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. If you have something to say, just say it. I will listen and do my best to help. But if you want to rely on your status and strength to teach a junior an unreasonable lesson, then I, Xiao Chen, am not a pushover. Ah! When Purple Marquis heard that, he guffawed like he heard something extremely funny. He said, "If not for the Thunder King supporting me, I would be able to flick you to death with one finger. Killing you would be as easy as killing an ant. Why can't I bully you? I'll be honest. You killed my Purple Marquis's son. Although I cannot kill you now, if I do not beat you half to death today, it will be hard for me to swallow this frustration." With a flip of his hand, Xiao Chen caught that golden tail feather between two fingers. When he drove it with all his might, it gave off a blazing aura. A golden solar flame formed a thick pillar of fire that soared into the sky from Xiao Chen's body, piercing through the clouds. The blazing light was too bright, plunging the surroundings into darkness. Only this pillar of fire soared into the sky, burning fiercely. This is the expression of Purple Marquis, who was preparing to make a move, slowly turned grave. He stared at the golden tail feather between Xiao Chen's fingers. This commotion shocked the others as well. To think that Xiao Chen intended to make a move against a greater heavenly martial emperor. Was he crazy? As a greater heavenly emperor Wu, Purple Marquis could level Heavenly Star Island with one thought. However, at this moment, he felt a great threat from that tiny feather. Purple Marquis swept his gaze across the golden crow. When he saw that the little golden crow also had two golden tail feathers that stood out from the crowd, he suddenly understood. Now that he understood what Xiao Chen was holding, his heart sank. He said softly, "Golden tail feather, a life-saving technique passed down by the golden crow race. Xiao Chen, you really give me many surprises. To think that the golden crow holy beast would give you one of its most precious items. However, if you think that this thing can scare me, then you are too naive. I guarantee that if you dare to make a move, you will be the one at a disadvantage in the end." Bathed in the golden pillar of fire, Xiao Chen held the golden tail feather between two fingers. He said indifferently, "That's right. I will be the one at a disadvantage. Even if I use this golden tail feather, I will only be able to injure you severely. However, I will lose a life-saving trump card and will still be beaten half to death by you. No matter how you look at it, the losses outweigh the gains. However, there are some things in this world that cannot be determined by whether you suffer a loss or not. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Your son came to my Heavenly Star Island to cause trouble, killing the residents of my Heavenly Star Island, injuring my brothers, and humiliating my friends. His death is not to be regretted." The moment Purple Marquis said that, there was a huge commotion. The 8 old men felt their legs go soft. They finally understood why Purple Marquis was so angry. It turned out that Xiao Chen actually killed his son. The son of a martial emperor died at Xiao Chen's hands. After killing a martial emperor's son, not only did Xiao Chen show no intention of apologizing or begging for mercy, but he even confronted Purple Marquis. No wonder Purple Marquis disregarded his status, and wanted to personally teach Xiao Chen a lesson, saying that he would beat Xiao Chen half to death. "I am not in the wrong. The one in the wrong is your son. Even if you came personally, it would be impossible for me, Xiao Chen, to apologize. Wrong is wrong, right is right. Since you dare to make a move on me, I dare to risk my life to accompany you. I believe that your enemies would be very happy to see a severely injured Purple Marquis." Xiao Chen did not show any fear in the face of danger. He stared at Purple Marquis and argued for what was right, neither servile nor overbearing. Xiao Chen was not trying to be a hero or being arrogant. However, there were some things that he needed to persevere on. There were some beliefs that he absolutely could not waver on. Xiao Chen could not lose his principles just because the other party had a good father. He could not lower his head and admit his mistake. He would rather break than bend his pride. For some reason, when Xiao Chen said those words, it gave others a misconception. Purple Marquis, who was wearing purple dragon robes and battle armor, a bona fide martial emperor with a surging aura, seemed to be much weaker than Xiao Chen's. Lan Xiaobai, who was at the side, felt his blood boil. A flame burned in his chest. When he faced Purple Marquis's strong aura, he did his best to take a step forward and guffawed. Xiao Chen, having a brother like you in this life is worth it. Then, Lan Xiaobai turned to Purple Marquis and shouted, Purple Marquis, your son died because of me. If you want to humiliate Xiao Chen, you will have to do it over my corpse. In the future, my Azura race will definitely have seniors who will seek justice for you. Lan Xiaobai had a hard time saying these words. Before the might of a martial emperor, he had to use all his strength and clench his teeth to say each word. However, Lan Xiaobai had to say it. Xiao Chen killed Purple Marquis's son because of Lan Xiaobai. Today, when a martial emperor came, Xiao Chen blocked all of them by himself, not lowering his head or bending his back, facing a martial emperor. He, Lan Xiaobai, would not be a coward either. Me too. Purple Marquis, if you want to humiliate elder brother Xiao Chen, you will have to do it over Yu's corpse. I, Jinlin, am willing to sacrifice my life to accompany you. I, Yu Chenxi, will not stand by and watch you humiliate senior brother Xiao. Me too. The pillar of flame soaring into the sky from Xiao Chen's body was like a beacon in the darkness, gathering everyone on Heavenly Star Island. All of them showed rage on their faces as they looked at Purple Marquis without fear. More people gathered. Aside from the cultivators of Heavenly Star Island, the ordinary residents came out as well. Countless pairs of eyes stared coldly at purple-clad Marquis in the darkness. Everyone was of one mind, willing to block this calamity for Xiao Chen. When the voices merged together, everyone felt a hot-bloodedness surge in their bodies. To Purple Marquis, these people were all ant. As long as he wanted to, he could easily kill them all, not leaving a single one alive. However, Purple Marquis had never experienced such a situation in his life. Since the day he stepped onto the martial Dao, he had never seen such a scene that shook his soul. What kind of person could make these millions of people walk out of the darkness, threaten to die, and disregard their own safety? The 8 old men were all dumbfounded. They had not expected that after a martial emperor appeared, so many people from Heavenly Star Island would step forward. As expected, the scene of the purple-clad Marquis beating Xiao Chen half to death did not happen. Instead, Xiao Chen was enveloped by the formless energy field. Instead, he was completely suppressed by Heavenly Star Island, unable to say anything for a long time. Of course, Purple Marquis could not possibly kill all these people. He was not an evil cultivator and was not that deranged. However, such a situation surpassed his expectations. After he returned from the starry heavens, he heard the news of his son's death. Purple Marquis had only wanted to come to Heavenly Star Island to stand up for his son, to teach Xiao Chen a ruthless lesson and make him apologize. Who would have thought that such a scene would occur? Xiao Chen, you are indeed capable. This Marquis has to admit that your rise and fame are not exaggerated at all. However, you should know that before a martial emperor, even 10 times the number of people before you are nothing. Purple Marquis muttered to himself for a while before continuing, If I want to hurt you, no matter how many people you have, you will not be able to stop me. As long as you apologize to me for today's matter, I, Purple Marquis, will keep my word. In the future, I will not seek trouble for you. Just take it that my son is not as skilled as you. When the 8 old men heard this, they were greatly startled. The Purple Marquis, who swept through the Western Sea, was actually forced to take a step back by Xiao Chen. If word of this got out, no one would believe it. Xiao Chen's white robes flickered with a golden light as he said calmly, Since I am not in the wrong, why should I apologize? Any senior who has stepped on the Emperor's road is worthy of my, Xiao Chen's, respect. That includes Senior Purple Marquis. However, it is still the same thing. There are some things where right is right and wrong is wrong. Along the way, Shao Chun has adhered to this principle. He will not change it in this life or regret it even in death. If you want to make a move, Shao Chun is willing to welcome you at any time. Chapter 1137. Holding the plume feather in his right hand, Shao Chun did not change his principles because of purple-clad Marquis's concession. He prepared to toss the plume feather at the other party, not hesitating to take him down with him. How hateful! Purple-clad Marquis roared in his heart. He had never felt so sullen and conflicted like this before. It was not only because of the plume feather in Shao Chen's hand that he feared, but also because of Shao Chen's persistence, which purple-clad Marquis found extremely terrifying. Since ancient times, perhaps there had been someone more outstanding than Shao Chen among the outstanding talents of the past. However, this unyielding character, as well as this pointless persistence, was probably the only one who had ever done it before and would never be able to do it in the future. Good, good, good. After saying good 3 times in a row, purple-clad Marquis made his decision. He was no longer willing to waste time with Shao Chen here. He said coldly, "Hand over my son's corpse, and I will let you off for now." The plume feather circled around Shao Chen and absorbed the pillar of fire soaring into the sky. The darkness disappeared, and sunlight shone down once more. Everyone from Heavenly Star Island revealed a smile on their faces. They had won. "Shao Bai, hand the corpse to purple-clad Marquis," Shao Chen said after putting away the plume feather. "Wait, purple-clad Marquis, since you know that you are in the wrong, I cannot let you take the corpse away for nothing." Just as Lan Xiaobai was about to make a move, 2 people suddenly appeared in the damaged hall, one old and one young. Even purple-clad Marquis had not noticed these 2 people. Everyone's gazes focused on the old man who spoke. They were startled. This was actually another greater heavenly Emperor Wu. When Lan Xiaobai and Yu saw the old man and the young man's faces clearly, they revealed expressions of extreme joy. That young man was none other than the Azura race's Lan Tianji. After such a long time, he finally returned. He even brought a greater celestial Emperor Wu of the Shura tribe with him. Actually, if one thought about it, it was easy to guess. Apart from the Azura race, who else would be able to appear silently in front of Purple Marquis? When purple-clad Marquis saw the old man's appearance, his expression changed as he recognized him. "You are Lan Xiaofeng, the Flying Snow Mountain Manor's former first rank on the Heaven Series ranking of assassins." The Flying Snow Mountain Manor was a mysterious assassin organization in the Kunlun realm. Any cultivator could become an assassin there. You could choose to reveal your identity, or you could choose to hide it. Most people were afraid of trouble, so they only used a code name. Only a small number of people had no qualms about using their real identity, or they wanted to become famous in the first place. These people were mostly loose cultivators. Completing assassin missions of a certain difficulty would earn them points to upgrade their level. Among them, the Heaven Series Assassin was the highest rank in the Flying Snow Manor. As long as one became a Heaven Series Assassin, every time they took action, they would receive a sky-high reward. However, if one wanted to become a Heaven Series Assassin, the most basic requirement was to have Emperor Wu's cultivation. After that, one had to go through a series of tests before one could be officially conferred the title of a Heaven Series Assassin. One of the tests was to kill 5 Emperor Wu. Just thinking about it made one feel that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven. After becoming Emperor Wu and cultivating the heart of an emperor, he was already very difficult to kill. It was not strange for Emperor Wu to fall. However, it was extremely difficult to truly kill Emperor Wu. Right now, the number of Heaven Series assassins in the entire Flying Snow Mountain Manor could be counted on 2 hands. Every one of them was unfathomable, inspiring fear in others. Ordinary people would not know the identities of these Heaven Series assassins. They might not even have heard of them. However, in Emperor Wu's circle, once one's strength reached a certain level, this was no secret. Due to the Azura race's innate talent in space, they had an innate advantage in being assassins. In reality, many famous experts were Azura race cultivators. This ordinary-looking old man before Shao Qin was actually the top rank of the Heaven Series assassin ranking. He could not help but tremble in fear. The ordinary-looking Lan Chaofeng smiled faintly and said, "I have not made a move in many years." Unexpectedly, the purple-clad marquis in the distant heavenly starry ocean has heard of me. How surprising! The purple-clad marquis smiled coldly to himself. At least 10 Emperor Wus had died at the hands of this old man. In Emperor Wu's circle, this fellow's name was even more horrifying than several sovereign martial emperors. He was known as the Life Reaper Azura. Fortunately, this fellow had not taken any missions for several hundred years, slowly fading out of their circle. However, Lan Chaofeng had not expected to meet the person that Emperor Wu did not want to meet in this rundown place. After not seeing Lan Chaofeng for several hundred years, not only did this fellow not die, but he even became a greater heavenly Emperor Wu. His cultivation was even deeper than Lan Chaofeng's. When Lan Chaofeng was a minor heavenly Emperor Wu, he could already threaten some greater heavenly Emperor Wus. Now that Lan Chaofeng was a greater heavenly Emperor Wu, his cultivation was even higher than purple-clad marquis. Lan Chaofeng was even less of a match for him. The purple-clad marquis felt very depressed. This matter was already in the bag. First, Shao Chen's unyielding pride forced him to give in again and again. Now there was this Lan Chaofeng. Even if Shao Chen wanted to take the corpse, there would be many variables. The purple-clad marquis raged in his heart. He looked at Lan Chaofeng and said, "What exactly do you want? This has nothing to do with you, right?" Lan Chaofeng replied indifferently, "It's very simple. Since you admit that you are in the wrong, then apologize to my disciple on behalf of your son. Then, apologize to this little brother. If you do not want to apologize, fine. Just throw down 10 million black astral coins. Otherwise, you can forget about taking your son's corpse away." Tyrannical. Be it the many cultivators of Heavenly Star Island or the few old men outside, they could not help exclaiming in their hearts. Lan Chaofeng's son died and he came to seek trouble. Based on the current situation, he would have to apologize to Heavenly Star Island instead. This mysterious old man who suddenly appeared was truly tyrannical. "Lan Chaofeng, don't go overboard." The purple-clad marquis immediately became enraged. He did not care about 10 million black astral coins. However, he could not afford to lose face like this. Haha. Indeed, after not making a move for 1,000 years, the title of Life Reaping Azura is just a symbol in the eyes of some people. Lan Chaofeng smiled faintly, and an ancient black coin appeared in his hand. That ancient coin seemed to have a life of its own. It jumped around and spun around his fingers. This was clearly a very simple action, but it dazzled everyone, making them dizzy. It was only then that the crowd noticed this unprepossessing old man. This unprepossessing old man had a pair of extremely perfect hands. This was because when the ancient coin jumped around, no one felt any energy fluctuations at all. This old man used his nimble fingers to perform all sorts of incredible actions. Seeing the mysterious ancient coin jump around, purple-clad marquis's heart sank. According to rumor, when that coin stopped jumping around, Lan Chaofeng would make his move. According to an even more exaggerated rumor, when one saw Lan Chaofeng spinning the ancient coin, one would no longer think of fleeing, as one would not be able to. When the black astral coin stopped jumping around, one would no longer have the chance to counterattack, as one would no longer have the chance. One would just quietly wait for death. In Lan Chaofeng's long life of killing, countless famous people had used their lives to verify the veracity of this rumor. This was where the title of Life Reaping Azura came from. Purple-clad marquis's thoughts raced. In an instant, he thought of thousands of methods. However, none of them could allow him to escape unscathed from Lan Chaofeng. Bang! With a flip of his hand, a pile of black astral coins appeared in the dilapidated hall. Then, purple-clad Marquis said, "Give me my son's corpse." Lan Xiaobai, who had been prepared for a long time, waved his hand, and tossed out a coffin from his spatial ring. Purple-clad Marquis put away the coffin without even looking at it. Then, he turned around and tore space, quickly leaving this place. Lan Chaofeng, who used only one coin to force purple-clad Marquis away, smiled faintly. Without anyone seeing Lan Chaofeng do anything, the mysterious ancient coin in his hand vanished. As Huan Zhentian watched purple-clad Marquis leave, cheers rang out in Heavenly Star Island. Even someone as strong as purple-clad Marquis suffered a great loss on Heavenly Star Island, not daring to have any other thoughts. This made every cultivator who stood up for Shao Chun feel incomparably proud. There was a sense of honor in everyone's hearts. Blue Dragon King, I forgot something earlier. You said that you came to visit Heavenly Star Island. In the end, you came empty-handed. This is not very polite. You must accept these 5 million black astral coins. I'm getting old, and my memory is bad. Blue Dragon King, please don't mind me. I can reluctantly accept these 5 million black astral coins as a gift. This old man will make up for it when I pay a formal visit in the future. The few old men, who were preparing to leave, quickly ran over. Their faces brimmed with smiles as they left the 5 million black astral coins, wanting Shao Chen to accept them. These old men did not even give Shao Chen a chance to refuse. After tossing down the black astral coins, they quickly left. That was then, and this was now. Earlier, Shao Chen only made them feel some fear. In the future, they could not afford to offend Heavenly Star Island. However, when they saw how united the many cultivators of Heavenly Star Island were, how boldly Shao Chen dared to face off against a martial emperor, and how mysterious the Azura race martial emperor was, all of this pointed to Heavenly Star Island's rise. Everything showed that Heavenly Star Island's rise was just around the corner. Currying favor with Heavenly Star Island in advance was the right thing to do. Shao Chen's expression remained calm. He did not think much of this. Together with Lan Xiaobai, they quickly headed for that tyrannical Azura race martial emperor. If not for this old man's appearance, even if purple-clad Marquis was chased away by Shao Chen, he would not be satisfied and would come back sooner or later. However, now, he was scared away. In the future, even if Shao Chen invited him, he would not dare to come casually. How come I have never heard you mention your master? Shao Chen asked Lan Xiaobai, who was beside him, as they walked. Lan Xiaobai's smile slowly faded as he recalled this matter. It seemed like he thought of some bad news. He said, 5 years ago, my master said that he was going to break through to Sovereign Martial Emperor. After that, there has been no news of him. Looking at it now, I'm afraid he failed. Breaking through to Sovereign Martial Emperor was not only extremely dangerous, but there was also only one chance. If one missed this chance, there would not be a second chance. There had never been a precedent since ancient times. Shao Chen consoled, it's fine. At the very least, he is still fine. Chapter 1138. Lan Xiaobai revealed a smile again. He nodded and said, right? Those who fail to break through to Sovereign Martial Emperor lose their lives. The fact that Master survived is already the best news. As they spoke, the two officially met with Lan Tianji and Lan Chaofeng. Shao Chen performed a cupped fist salute and said, many thanks to Senior's help this time. I cannot thank you enough. The unprepossessing Lan Chaofeng smiled and said, you are too humble. Even if I did not appear, you would have more or less settled the matter. In front of the greater celestial Emperor Wu, a young man who dares to uphold his own principles? This is the first time I've seen someone like you. Furthermore, you were the one who stood up for Xiaobai in the first place. That's why you attracted all this trouble. Furthermore, you are the one who took the blame. I should be the one saying thank you. Tianqi and I are right, Xiaobai did not follow the wrong person. Lan Tianji smiled and said, Master never believed it. Given Xiaobai's character, how could he be willing to follow someone of the younger generation? Now that I personally saw it, I have no choice but to believe it. Lan Xiaobai was more concerned about breaking through to Sovereign Martial Emperor. He asked, Master, how is your breakthrough to Sovereign Martial Emperor going? The moment Xiao Chen said this, Lan Tianji and Lan Xiaofeng could not hide their smiles. Xiao Chen and Lan Xiaobai immediately felt that something was wrong. There was probably something unexpected. How difficult is it for a martial emperor to be conferred king? Tianqi, just tell me. Lan Xiaofeng sighed, not willing to talk about this matter. Lan Tianji thought for a while and said, It failed. The sovereign's tribulation is boundlessly horrifying. Master only has 20 to 30 years left to live. What? Upon hearing this, Lan Xiaobai and Xiao Chen's expressions changed drastically. They were lucky to have survived the failed king's conferment, but they did not expect that there would be such serious consequences. Lan Xiaofeng smiled gently and said, Everyone dies. Even someone as strong as the Qing Emperor and the strongest person in the world, the Thunder King, cannot avoid it. Without becoming a martial god, no one can avoid it. Don't mind it too much, this old man has lived long enough. Master. Lan Xiaobai's voice sounded somewhat choked. Lan Tianji had not come for so long. He was probably taking care of Lan Xiaofeng, who failed his tribulation. Little did he expect that when he finally managed to meet Lan Tianji, he would receive such a piece of news. Lan Xiaofeng felt moved in his heart. He smiled and scolded, It's fine. Work hard. I might be able to see the day when you and Tianqi are conferred kings. Xiao Chen, who had been listening to their conversation, suddenly had a thought. He asked, Senior, have you consumed natural treasures that can increase your lifespan? Lan Xiaofeng smiled bitterly and said, This natural treasure that can increase one's lifespan is something that can only be found and not sought. When I was young, I obtained a few. But I didn't pay much attention to it and gave it to some old friends. Now I can't find it no matter how hard I try. Some things weren't worth much, and they weren't even used normally. However, when he really needed it, he realized that it was something that could only be chanced upon. No matter how hard he searched, he could not find it. Xiao Chen still had 2 longevity fruits in his hand. He quickly took one out and said, This is a longevity fruit. It can extend one's lifespan by 100 years. If Senior cannot find a better natural treasure, you can consume this. The few of them all showed joy on their faces. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen had such a treasure that could not be sought after. Xiaobai, help your master keep it. I have no use for this thing anyway. Xiao Chen handed the longevity fruit to Lan Tianji for him to pass to his master. Xiao Chen had a longevity fruit that could give others 100 years of lifespan. However, he could not break free from the nightmare of 4 years. Lan Xiaofeng received the longevity fruit from Xiaobai's hand and entered deep thought, like he was about to make a decision. After a while, he said, Originally, I planned to come to Heavenly Star Island to see Xiaobai before leaving, then go look for natural treasures that can extend one's lifespan. Since you gave me a longevity fruit, then this old man will stay here for a while. I can't keep watching others bully my 2 disciples. Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. Lan Xiaofeng's words meant that he agreed to stay on Heavenly Star Island. With an Azura Emperor who could force the purple-clad Marquis to retreat, there was no need to worry about Heavenly Star Island's safety. Lan Xiaobai and Lan Tianji were equally happy that a senior like Lan Xiaofeng could remain on Heavenly Star Island. Master, have you heard about what happened to Xiao Chen? It was rare for Lan Xiaobai to meet a bona fide martial emperor. Furthermore, Lan Xiaofeng was his relative. He could not help but ask about Xiao Chen's matter. Lan Xiaofeng nodded. If the Blue Dragon King did not advance to martial emperor in 5 years, he had only 20 more years to live. For some reason, this news set the Kunlun continent abuzz. In nearly 1 month, it spread throughout the entire Kunlun continent, causing a huge commotion. Lan Tianji entered deep thought. Advancing to martial emperor in 5 years? That might not be impossible. Only 1 year has passed, and Xiao Chen already reached great perfection blue-robed emperor. In this age of geniuses, any miracle can happen. As someone with experience, Lan Xiaofeng shook his head and said, "That is hard to say. As long as there are sufficient resources, advancing from small perfection blue-robed emperor to great perfection blue-robed emperor can be done quickly. Since ancient times, Xiao Chen's current cultivation speed is not considered very fast." Xiao Chen nodded and said, "I have no problems with resources. Can Senior give me some pointers on how to merge my soul with the heavenly seal and form the vague form of the heart of an emperor?" The great tribulation of wind and fire was still far away. Right now, Xiao Chen was most concerned about how to perfectly merge his soul with the heavenly seal. Lan Xiaofeng said, "Given the comprehension abilities of you outstanding talents, this stage is actually not difficult. You can clear it sooner or later. However, this requires a long time to test it out. Then, when the conditions are right, success will follow. Others will not be able to give you pointers. However, what you lack the most right now is time." Lan Xiaofeng's words hit the crucial point. This stage could stop 90% of blue-robed emperors. However, this 90% definitely did not include the outstanding talents with high comprehension abilities. Naturally, Xiao Chen was no exception. What he lacked was time. "Is there any way for me to clear this stage quickly?" Xiao Chen continued asking. Perhaps in history, were there any people who used a very short time to perfectly merge their soul with the heavenly seal? Lan Xiaofeng thought carefully and shook his head. "As far as I know, there were no such people. However, I only know the history of the Kunlun continent. This oceanic world might not necessarily not have such a person." Xiao Chen felt somewhat disappointed. It looked like he could not count on anyone else for this stage. It was as Elder Qin said, he could only rely on himself. 10 days later, the news of purple-clad Marquis running into a wall at Heavenly Star Island quickly spread throughout the entire Western Sea. The scene of Xiao Chen facing off with a martial emperor was described vividly, quickly spreading among the cultivators. A great perfection blue-robed emperor actually dared to face off with a martial emperor like purple-clad Marquis. In the end, he even managed to gain the upper hand. If not for many people verifying the authenticity of this news, no one would believe it. In the next 3 days, aside from the nearby sects, all the sects in the entire Western Sea came to visit. Even Qian Zongqiao, whom Xiao Chen knocked back with a palm strike, came to apologize with heavy gift. For a while, Heavenly Star Island became very prosperous. It finally gained a firm foothold in this chaotic heavenly starry ocean. It would no longer be seen as an outsider. There would always be people coming to covet those subsidiary resource islands. Xiao Chen rejected all the social engagements and focused on cultivation, not letting these trivial matters disturb him. However, today, he received a piece of news that made Xiao Chen come out of his closed-door cultivation room without any hesitation. Kim Taeho had returned from the Black Sea with the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce's huge merchant ship. When Xiao Chen received news of Kim Taeho's return, he immediately came out of his state of silent cultivation. He had been tempted long ago and could not wait to go to the Black Sea. Xiao Chen met with Kim Taeho in a pavilion. Xiao Chen looked the same as before, adorned with jewels and glowing with health. He fanned himself with a golden folding fan, and the shrewdness of a merchant was written all over his face. However, Xiao Chen noticed a faint black line on Xiao Chen's forehead. It was like some kind of negative emotion had gathered together. Brother Xiao Chen, you are finally back," Kim Taeho immediately said with a smile when he saw Xiao Chen. The two chatted for a while. Then, Xiao Chen asked about the Black Sea and the development of the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce. Finally, he asked about Batu's situation. According to Kim Taeho's introduction, The Black Sea was not much smaller than the heavenly starry ocean. It was extremely vast, and the islands were even denser. According to legend, the islands of the Black Sea were originally a complete continent with many ancient factions and many legendary characters. Later on, for some reason, it shattered, resulting in the current situation. The islands were as densely packed as the stars in the sky. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation and transformation, the Black Sea had formed 5 major sea domains: the Black Water Sea, the Black Wind Sea, the Black Cloud Sea, the Black Fire Sea, and the core sea domain, the Dark Sea. The Dark Sea had the richest resources in the entire oceanic world and the most fortuitous encounters. However, it also had the harshest natural environment in the entire oceanic world. The 2 words Black Sea lived up to its name. The entire sea domain was shrouded in boundless dark clouds all year round. The sky was always dark. No matter how piercing the sunlight was, it could not shine down. There was also a mysterious substance in the air that could affect a cultivator's mind, making them irritable, easily angered, and unable to control their murderous heart. Hence, the cultivators in the Black Sea all had fiery tempers. They were unreasonable, filled with hostility, and the entire sea domain was in chaos. However, it was easy to train experts here. Furthermore, they were all combat experts. When they fought, they would fight to the death. Just think about it. If a cultivator could maintain their original state of mind after living here for a long time and not be affected, just their mental state would surpass the cultivators of the other sea domains. As for the development of the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce, when Kim Tae-ho talked about it, his eyebrows danced with joy, talking about it without end. His initial capital of 100 million black astral coins had already multiplied to 50 million black astral coins. The momentum was excellent. However, after hearing Xiao Chen's introduction of the 1 billion black astral coins in the Dragon's Gate treasure trove, Kim Tae-ho felt a blow to his confidence. Damn it! This fat lord has worked so hard for more than a year, but I still can't compare to you and a girl in 2 or 3 days. However, Xiao Chen turned around and smiled. About that, can you give this fat lord some more capital? There are simply too many goods in the Black Sea. Our merchant ships are clearly not enough. Chapter 1139. Xiao Chen scolded jokingly, "Don't even think about it. Not only can I not give you black astral coins, but you can also use the resources that your merchant association earns to fund the construction of Heaven Dragon City." Kim Tae-ho opened his folding fan and said, "Hee hee. Just joking. To this fat lord, money is just a bunch of numbers. What this fat lord enjoys is the process." These words were not false at all. If Kim Tae-ho craved riches and honor, the wealth he had in the Sky Dome realm was enough for him to enjoy for several lifetimes. Xiao Chen said after some thought, "I will give you plenty of support as well. You can choose one of the subsidiary islands of Heavenly Star Island and make it an independent trading island for the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce. As for the merchant ships, after Mo Chen has settled down at Black Flame Island, I will sell all the King-grade warships I refined to your merchant association." When Kim Tae-ho heard this, his eyes immediately sparkled. A smile bloomed on his face as he said, "That is very generous. I will make a military pledge as well. Within 3 years, I will make the Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce the top merchant association in the Western Sea." Xiao Chen waved his hand and said, "There is no need to make this military pledge. I believe in your ability. Our goal is not just the Western Sea but the entire oceanic world. We also want to charge back to the Kunlun continent. We will trample on whoever smashed your signboard in the past, making them remove their own signboards." When Kim Tae-ho heard this, he thought back to how his signboards were smashed. A vicious look flashed in his eyes. When Xiao Chen saw this, he frowned slightly and said, "Something is wrong with you. It seems like you cannot control your murderous heart." Kim Tae-ho nodded and said, "After I return from the Black Sea, I need to rest for a month. Otherwise, it will be hard to guarantee that my heart will not change." Aside from the native cultivators, outsiders do not dare to stay in the Black Sea for long. Of course, this does not include some cultivators who want to temper their minds. Xiao Chen thought for a moment, then took off the Neptune headscarf from his forehead and handed it to Kim Taeho. This is the Neptune headscarf. You can wear it when you go to the Black Sea in the future. It will ensure that your heart will not change. Kim Taeho didn't take it. From your tone, it sounds like we're going to the Black Sea soon. You should keep it. Xiao Chen said seriously, my mental state has long since reached a state where it is impervious to ripples. The mysterious substance in the Black Sea is unable to affect me. Your cultivation is too far away from mine. Don't force yourself. The Neptune headscarf had endless uses, and Xiao Chen quite liked it. However, Kim Taeho obviously needed it more than him, so Xiao Chen didn't need to hide it. The Green Dragon Chamber of Commerce could develop so fast. The main reason was that Debao had opened up the Black Sea trade route and put in a lot of effort. In the end, Xiao Chen asked where Batu was before letting Kim Taeho rest. After Kim Taeho left, Xiao Chen slowly walked out of the room and arrived at the summit. He looked down and saw millions of workers laying the foundation for the future Heaven Dragon City. It was bustling with activity. Under the arrangements of Mo Chen and Lan Xiaobai, although there were many people, there was not much chaos in commanding them. Even farther away, the Mo clan's people on Black Flame Island were anxiously laying the foundation for the Dragon's Gate's refining pavilion. Yuchensi and the others were personally managing the various resource islands. The development of the entire Heavenly Star Island was very orderly. Furthermore, the Azura Emperor, Lan Chaofeng, presided over the islands. Heavenly Star Island's future was bright. I really can't bear to leave, Xiao Chen muttered with a nostalgic expression in his eyes. However, no matter what, he had to leave for now. He had to seek his own fortuitous encounter, to find a way to merge his soul with the heavenly seal quickly and smoothly. Xiao Chen wanted to fight against heaven. Everyone believed that he, Xiao Chen, could not become a martial emperor. They were waiting to see him make a joke of himself, waiting to see how he would fall from the peak 5 years later. All the opponents he had defeated in the past were looking on coldly, waiting for that day to come. Fortuitous encounters could not fall by themselves at home. Xiao Chen could only go out and search for them, risking his life in the most dangerous places. Indecisiveness would only lead to chaos. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and took 3 deep breaths. When he opened his eyes again, there was no longer any fear or hesitation in them. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and floated down the mountain peak. Then, he started to say goodbye to his old friends. After looking around, Xiao Chen finally found Mo Chen. At this moment, Mo Chen's room was filled with piles of sketches and all sorts of books and information. In the somewhat messy room, Mo Chen continued to painstakingly draw her sketches. She did not even notice Xiao Chen's arrival. Mo Chen casually raised her head and saw Xiao Chen outside. Pleasant surprise flashed in her eyes. She stopped what she was doing and smiled. "What's wrong? You finally have time to come to my place?" Xiao Chen said, "Make a guess. I'll give you 3 chances." Mo Chen slapped her forehead and smiled bitterly. "This time I really hope that I guessed wrong. However, you will have to leave in the end. Now that Heavenly Star Island is on the right track, you can leave in peace." Xiao Chen smiled. Indeed, he could not hide anything from the other party. There was no need for words between the two. After a short silence, Xiao Chen said, "Take care." Then, he turned and left. "Don't forget. You promised me that you would personally see me remove my veil," Mo Chen said as tears glistened in her eyes. Xiao Chen's body paused slightly. However, he did not turn his head back. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. I, Xiao Chen, never go back on my promises. I will definitely live on and see you personally remove your veil. You are the top beauty of the Cloud Sea domain. If I don't see you, I will not be satisfied even if I die." After saying that, Xiao Chen left with large strides. Only his figure remained, slowly disappearing from Mo Chen's hazy vision. What was waiting for Shao Chen in the mysterious Black Sea? Whether he could find the secret method to break through to great perfection of the blue-robed emperor? Everything was unknown. After taking this step, what awaited Shao Chen was a new journey. On the path to emperor, I dare to fight against the heavens. From Heavenly Star Island to the Black Sea, the first stop was the Black Water Sea, one of the 6 great sea domains. This sea domain was as large as the entire Western Sea. Riding the Flood Dragon war chariot, Shao Chen got Ao Jiao to drive the chariot for him as he soared above the clouds. Inside the war chariot, Shao Chen continued to cultivate, not wasting any time. A cold jade prayer mat floated on the soft bed in the war chariot. Shao Chen sat cross-legged on it. 5 different colored lights slowly spun around him. Each clump of light gave off a different feeling. Massacre, death, destruction, despair, and grief. They were all different. That was right. These lights were the 5 thrones that Shao Chen had collected. They contained 5 different high-level states. Ordinary people could be called geniuses as long as they had one state and raised it to a will. With 2 they could move unhindered. With 3 they could be called an absolute genius. However, Shao Chen had 5. If he collected the Pain Throne and the Destruction Throne, he would have 7. There were too many. Shao Chen did not intend to raise all of them to wills. That would waste too much time. Shao Chen intended to wait until he had collected all 7 wills before merging them into the state of cycle. At that time, he would raise the state of cycle to the will of cycle. This was what he needed to do after he became Emperor Wu. As for now, he could not give up on these different states. He snapped his right hand. The roof of the war chariot slowly descended, and Shao Chen sat cross-legged on the prayer mat. The scene before him suddenly opened up, and he looked into the distance. With a thought, the purple lightning talisman that represented the will of thunder sent out 4 beams of light, forming a seemingly invisible, sharp saber. This was the form of Shao Chen's small perfection saber soul. The lightning-attributed energy in the saber soul had not faded yet, crackling with electricity. Shao Chen stretched out his hand, and a strand of saber chi with electricity surrounding it shot out from his fingertip. It was like a bolt of lightning tearing through the sky in the blink of an eye and striking a rank 8 spirit beast 5 kilometers away. The saber chi with the lightning-attributed energy first chopped the spirit beast in half. After that, the lightning-attributed energy exploded, turning the remaining 2 halves of the spirit beast's corpse into charcoal. When the wind blew, the charcoal turned into black powder. This was the additional might of the lightning-attributed energy infused into the saber soul. In the end, the standard of a bladesman's strength was still the saber soul. Pu Ci. Little Yellow Feather, who was on Ao Jiao's back, was not to be outdone. It opened its mouth and spat out a golden flame, directly burning the other rank 8 spirit beast to ashes. Then, it spread its wings and looked at Shao Chen cockily. Be good, Little Yellow Feather. Shao Chen is testing his moves. Don't disturb him, Ao Jiao, who was riding on the deep-sea flood dragon, said with a smile as she rubbed Little Yellow Feather's head. Shao Chen smiled and tossed an astral core to Little Yellow Feather. Then, he started testing his moves. These were all high-rank state. Although they had not been raised to wills, they were of a higher grade than ordinary flames and ice. Shao Chen planned to merge these different wills with his saber soul. The saber soul would form the massacre saber soul, the destruction saber soul, the despair saber soul, and the death saber soul. When facing different enemies, the saber soul could be chosen accordingly. Sometimes, Shao Chen's strongest lightning saber soul might not be effective against some opponents with startling defenses. However, these other saber souls would catch him off guard. When Shao Chen absorbed the light of the state of death into his sea of consciousness, his mind was immediately filled with all sorts of emotions of death. After a while, Shao Chen adjusted to them. Shao Chen's eyes turned gray, representing death. He flicked out a strand of saber chi from his fingertip. This time, the speed of the saber chi was significantly slower. One could clearly see the trajectory of the saber chi as it tore through the sky. When the saber chi struck a rank 8 spirit beast 5 kilometers away, it did not split it in half. However, when the saber chi penetrated deep into it, the power of death slowly seeped out. The vitality of the spirit beast's body slowly dissipated. A moment later, its withered body fell from the sky. Shao Chen entered deep thought as he muttered, "Its might is much weaker than the lightning saber soul. However, it is also due to the lack of compatibility. After familiarizing myself with it, when I meet some special opponents, I can achieve unexpected results." Following that, Shao Chen tested the might of the various saber souls. Then, he connected them with one another, tempering their compatibility. With the continuous tempering, he could be considered to be cultivating his saber soul. A 40% comprehended saber soul was rather frightening among the blue-robed emperor's saber souls. Most bladesmen could barely raise their saber intent to the level of a saber soul. They could not even condense a physical form. Chapter 1140. However, there was still a lot of room for improvement. Cultivating more would not be bad for his strength. After all, Shao Chen was a bladesman by nature. His saber soul was the most important. 7 days later, the clouds below the Flood Dragon War Chariot slowly dimmed until it was completely dark. Shao Chen knew that he had reached the edge of the Black Sea. The Black Water Sea should not be far away. After thinking for a while, Shao Chen put away the Flood Dragon War Chariot and prepared to travel the rest of the way alone. After all, there were many experts in the Black Sea. This chaotic and resource-rich sea region was very tempting. There were countless experts here. Shao Chen was far from strong enough to move about freely. It was best to keep a low profile. According to the information that Kim Tae-ho obtained, Batu was not in the Blackwater Sea but in the Dark Sea, the core of the entire Black Sea. Hence, Shao Chen did not intend to stay in this Blackwater Sea for long. If nothing unexpected happened, he would just treat it as a place to stay and familiarize himself with the environment of the Black Sea. After piercing through the clouds, Shao Chen, who was in the air, immediately felt the various negative emotions that came with his breathing: irritation, rage, massacre, and many others. His heart did not change. His saber soul flickered, and Shao Chen used his strong willpower to eliminate all these negative emotions, leaving none in his body. Dang! 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 Before Shao Chen landed on the surface of the sea, the sounds of fighting entered his ears. Squinting, Shao Chen discovered that several merchant ships of a merchant association were being attacked. The merchant group was rather large, and the merchant ships were all Sage-grade. There were 10 of them, and the flagship was a King-grade warship. However, the situation was not good. The densely packed small pirate ships surrounded the entire merchant group. Figures radiating baleful auras leaped and charged at the merchant ship. A ferocious-looking pirate was currently ganging up on a middle-aged man on the merchant ship's flagship, gaining the upper hand. Shao Chen had heard about the chaos of the Black Sea long ago. However, he had not expected to run into a merchant group being robbed right at the edge. After observing for a while, Shao Chen concluded that this group of pirates was not very strong. The pirate leader fighting on the flagship was only as strong as the great perfection blue-robed emperor. A moment later, he made his decision. He wasn't the kind of idiot who would rush over to save a bunch of strangers regardless of the situation when he saw something like this. However, if it was within his power, he would still lend a helping hand. After all, this group of robbing pirates did not look like good people. Shao Chen's figure flashed. His white robes looked spotless as he carried the lunar shadow saber and landed in the sky above the flagship. When the two sides saw the sudden appearance of this person, their expressions changed at the same time, and they both stopped fighting and retreated. The difference was that the burly middle-aged man revealed an expression of surprise, whereas the leader of the island was filled with killing intent and endless anger. The pirate leader wielded a heavy scarlet dragon-tooth saber. He looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Where did this brat come from? Do you know the rules of the Black Sea? If you see pirates robbing and dare to help, you will be wanted by all the pirates." Xiao Chen was slightly taken aback, but he laughed in his heart. Interesting. In other places, pirates were wanted, but in this place, the rules were reversed. The pirates held the upper hand. To think that they could order others to be wanted. Little brother, this is indeed the rule of the Black Sea. Once you are wanted, you will find it hard to move anywhere in the 5 seas. It is good that you have the intention. Don't get yourself involved. The middle-aged man could tell that Xiao Chen's cultivation was not low. Given his young age, he should be an outstanding talent of a holy land or a noble clan. Since the middle-aged man did not know the rules of the Black Sea, he sighed and tried to persuade Xiao Chen to leave. "Since you know the rules, then scram," the pirate leader said rudely with a cold smile. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "This is the first time I've heard of this rule. However, if you die, I'm afraid we won't be able to send out the wanted posters." The pirate leader laughed loudly and said, "You are already a great perfection blue-robed emperor at such a young age. You must be the successor of a large faction or a holy land. I saw that it was not easy for you to cultivate, so I was being more polite to you. To think that you became so arrogant. Don't treat the Black Sea as some other place. I will only say one thing to you. The blue-robed emperors here are not to be trifled with." The pirate leader shouted coldly and charged at Xiao Chen while holding the dragon-tooth saber. The pirate leader's eyes turned scarlet. Everywhere he passed, wolf howls resounded. A huge scarlet wolf image appeared behind him. Unexpectedly, this pirate leader was a fiend race member. His bloodline seemed to have mutated. He was not a pure heavenly wolf and was even more powerful. This saber strike had an overwhelming aura, and the wolf howls were even more horrifying. It was incredibly ferocious. Just the baleful aura that flowed out was enough to make one tremble in fear. Dang! No one saw how Xiao Chen moved, but there was a melodious dragon roar. He instantly drew the lunar shadow saber and blocked the dragon-tooth saber flying at him. The dragon roar clashed with the scarlet wolf howls. Unexpectedly, their auras were equal. The other party's scarlet wolf was not intimidated by Xiao Chen's dragon might. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. It was said that in this oceanic world, the Black Sea was the best place for the blue-robed emperor to cultivate. In order to strengthen themselves, the blue-robed emperors of various places would come here for experiential training. Furthermore, an even greater number of fugitives resided in the Black Sea all year round, making the situation of the Black Sea even more terrifying. The blue-robed emperor, which was rarely seen in the outside world, could be said to be a common sight here. Now, it looked like the rumors were true. This great perfection blue-robed emperor before him gave Xiao Chen a very different feeling. Compared to the great perfection blue-robed emperors raised in sects, this one was much more powerful. However, the more powerful the better. That way it would be more challenging. Xiao Chen turned around and pulled out the lunar shadow saber. At the same time, he executed flawless bright moon. A gentle moonlight appeared on the slender saber. "You have some strength. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant." The pirate leader laughed strangely and spun around in the air. With every spin, he sent out a saber strike. Every time the saber light flashed, a wolf image would appear. In the blink of an eye, the pirate leader had spun around 100 times. After sending out 100 saber strikes and 100 wolves, the pirate leader completely suppressed Xiao Chen's flawless bright moon, forcing Xiao Chen to continuously retreat 100 steps. "Brat, now you know that there are some problems that you should not bother with. Haha. However, there is no medicine for regret in this world. Defeat for me and hunt the world." The pirate leader laughed maniacally and suddenly revealed his true form. He turned into a scarlet wolf that stood upright and roared ferociously. Then, he swung his saber vigorously, and hundreds of wolf-shaped saber lights immediately flew at Xiao Chen. The sharp aura was like a pack of wolves on a hunt, galloping across a boundless grassland with an irresistible force. As for Xiao Chen, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and discovered the extraordinariness of this move. Every scarlet wolf was completely solid. Furthermore, there seemed to be qi and blood flowing in the scarlet wolves' bodies, surging with essence. Every one of them continuously absorbed the berserk massacre qi unique to the air of the Black Sea. With every second that passed, their bodies grew larger. By the time they arrived in front of Xiao Chen, each and every one of them was as big as a mountain. Their bodies had mutated to an extremely terrifying extent. Their fur had turned into sharp blood blades, and their eyes were scarlet red. "It's over." Seeing the pack of wolves swallow up Xiao Chen, the middle-aged man from the merchant group, the blue-robed emperor, revealed a bitter expression. He was somewhat surprised that this mission would be so difficult. It looked like not only would he fail, but he would also implicate an outstanding young talent. Xiao Chen had just entered the periphery of the Blackwater Sea when he ran into the infamous Blood Wolf pirate group. He did not know what goods they were transporting this time. Boom! Just when the middle-aged man thought that Xiao Chen, surrounded by the pack of wolves, would be devoured until not even his bones remained, 100 bolts of intense lightning suddenly shot out from the pack of wolves. A terrifying saber intent could be felt in every bolt of lightning. This is a saber soul. The saber chi has its own soul and also contains the might of the will of thunder. Otherwise, the saber intent that erupts out would not be so horrifying. The middle-aged man muttered to himself, his eyes filled with shock. What kind of genius bladesman is this? This saber soul is probably no weaker than the famous bladesmen of the older generation. Miserable howls resounded, and the pack of wolves howled in pain. Their momentum immediately shattered. Xiao Chen did not stop moving, continuing to attack, preparing to break this move in one go. Strands of azure dragon-shaped saber chi flew out of Xiao Chen's body. Eventually, 18 blue dragons surrounded Xiao Chen. The dragons roared ferociously, causing the sky to change color. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena flashed. Subduing dragon profound slash. When Xiao Chen chopped out, the 18 blue dragons merged into the saber, forming an azure saber light that reached the sky. The hundreds of blood wolves injured by the electric saber chi were immediately chopped into pieces by this horrifying saber light, like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Blood could be seen connecting the blood wolves' bodies. After the electric light exploded, the blood wolves were completely severed. This was already beyond the scope of a mysterious phenomenon. Xiao Chen guessed that the pirate leader's world hunt, the pirate group, probably infused his qi and blood into the saber technique. If an ordinary person executed this move, they would die from blood loss before they could finish executing it. Only the pirate leader, who could turn into a blood wolf, could execute this move. The saber light did not lose momentum, continuing to hack at the pirate leader. The pirate leader held his saber horizontally to block. However, the might of Xiao Chen's move was very great. It contained all the mysteries of the dragon subduing slash. How could the pirate leader, who had lost a large amount of qi and blood, block it? Ka-cie. The dragon tooth saber instantly broke. The saber light continued to hack down, chopping the pirate leader in half. However, the pirate leader was not dead yet. The two halves of his body were still connected by blood, doing their best to merge back together. Given time, the two halves might even be able to merge back together. This life form is really tenacious. However, since you already made a move, I cannot let you live. Executing Thunder Dragon steps, Xiao Chen arrived on a dragon amid lightning flashes and thunder roars. He infused the power of the lightning saber soul into his saber and hacked at the pirate leader's body 9 times in a row. After the 9 saber strikes, electric light burst out, and the pirate leader's body turned into charcoal. he could no longer revive. With their leader killed, the remaining pirates immediately retreated in a fluster. The crisis of the merchant group was temporarily resolved. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and suddenly frowned. He felt a gaze filled with heavy killing qi from 50 kilometers away. Even from 50 kilometers away, it made his hair stand on end. Chapter 1141. The owner of this gaze was at least a consummation blue-robed emperor. Xiao Chen's heart sank and his thoughts raced. He had a bad feeling that his actions this time had provoked some trouble. The goods that this merchant ship was carrying might not be ordinary goods. Actually, Xiao Chen should have thought of this long ago. Even though there were many blue-robed emperors in the Black Sea, they should not have run into a great perfection blue-robed emperor pirate the moment they arrived. The problem still lay with this ship. "Thank you for your help, young hero. I am very grateful." "I am very grateful," the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said with a smile as he flew over to Xiao Chen's side. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He said calmly, "It is within my capabilities. If I can, I will help. There is no need to be so polite. I have a presumptuous request. Young hero should be going to Blackwater City, right? How about we travel together?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked in anticipation. Blackwater City was located on Blackwater Island. It was the largest city in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were no less than 100 million people in the city. Blackwater Island was astonishingly large. Although it was an island, it was no smaller than a nation in the Sky Dome realm. Since Xiao Chen had arrived at the Blackwater Sea, he naturally could not avoid going to this large city to broaden his horizons. However, Xiao Chen did not wish to have anything to do with this merchant group. Xiao Chen looked at the ship. He was not in a rush to reply. Instead, he asked, "Might I know what goods your ship is carrying?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor's gaze paused for a moment. His expression changed unnaturally as he replied, "Nothing much. It is just some items that the Black Sea urgently lacked. Sunstone, secret silver, black gold, and the like." When Xiao Chen saw the other party's expression, he smiled and asked, "Is that so?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor sighed and said, "Very well, I'll be honest. My merchant group received a large order. I do not know what it is exactly, but it is very large. There are a lot of them, and it took several large ships to barely fit them all. I didn't expect to run into trouble as soon as we entered the Black Sea. I would like to hire you as a guard for our caravan." Xiao Chen decisively refused. "Don't worry, nothing will happen to the goods on the ship. There should be a hidden expert on your ship whose strength is a level higher than mine." The middle-aged blue-robed emperor asked curiously, "A master? Why didn't I know about this?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor found it strange that Xiao Chen knew better than him whether there were any experts on his ship or not. Moreover, Xiao Chen was so sure about it. "Young hero, you must be joking," the middle-aged blue-robed emperor said doubtfully. Xiao Chen muttered to himself. He was very sure of his guess. If there were no experts on the ship, it would be hard to explain. Why didn't that mysterious person from 100 miles away personally make a move and snatch away the goods that they wanted? There had to be someone on the ship that mysterious person feared. That was why he did not dare to make a move. That was the only explanation. Xiao Chen did not answer the middle-aged blue-robed emperor's question. He glanced at the merchant ship and said in a neutral tone, "Sir, since you are on the merchant ship, why don't you show yourself and let this uncle feel at ease?" "Ah, young people really have good eyes. If I still don't show myself, I will look bad." Amid loud laughter, a white-haired old man with a healthy complexion walked out of the ship's hold. The middle-aged blue-robed emperor said in shock, "Senior Ma?" The middle-aged blue-robed emperor recognized this person. He was an old man that his employer had left behind to look after the goods. This old man was merely a superior-grade martial sage, not even comparable to the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. How could this old man be an expert? Xiao Chen sent out his mental energy from his sea of consciousness. Indeed, Senior Ma was only a superior grade martial sage. However, the instant Xiao Chen withdrew his mental energy, Senior Ma gave off an aura as deep as the sea. It was the blue-robed emperor's consummation cultivation. Furthermore, this was not the blue-robed emperor who cultivated an earth-ranked cultivation technique. What he cultivated was the peak heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Otherwise, his aura would not be so terrifying. The instant Senior Ma appeared, the middle-aged blue-robed emperor nearly fell from the sky. Senior Ma did not look at the middle-aged blue-robed emperor. Instead, he went straight to Xiao Chen and asked doubtfully, "Young man, which holy land are you from? That's not right. You use a saber. There does not seem to be any holy scions who use a saber. Could you be a disciple of the Northern Sea Saber Sovereign, the Inferno Saber Sovereign, or the Ice Saber Sovereign?" At first glance, Senior Ma eliminated Xiao Chen from the list of local cultivators of the Black Sea. This was because Senior Ma had lived in the Black Sea for hundreds of years. He knew the information of the peak experts and young outstanding talents of the various sea domains of the Black Sea like the back of his hand. None of them matched Xiao Chen's description. In that case, Xiao Chen could only be a cultivator from the outside world. Senior Ma did not know much about the cultivators of the heavenly starry ocean, so he could only make a rough guess. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Old sir, there is no need to guess. I come from the Kunlun continent." "Oh, the Kunlun continent? In that case, you must be a disciple of the powerful saber sovereign, Wu Xiaotian. My clan's ancestor once had a friendship with the powerful saber sovereign, Wu Xiaotian." Senior Ma suddenly understood. He immediately determined Xiao Chen's identity. He had to be the disciple of the saber sovereign, Wu Xiaotian. Otherwise, how could Xiao Chen cultivate a 40% comprehended saber soul at such a young age, comparable to some of the older generation bladesmen? "How about it? Since you are going to Black Water City as well, let's go together," Senior Ma invited. Xiao Chen did not comment on Senior Ma's guess. He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I'm used to traveling alone. I'm afraid I cannot agree to Senior's request." It was clear that this ship carried extraordinary goods and had great implications. How could Xiao Chen continue to wade into such murky waters? "That is somewhat unfortunate. I have an invitation here. If young master is free, you can come to our Jadeite Mountain Manor on the 15th of next month to attend a ceremony." Senior Ma did not insist. He took out an invitation from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen received it and took a look. The invitation did not specify what ceremony it was, making it seem somewhat mysterious. Xiao Chen knew a little about the Jadeite Mountain Manor. It was rather famous in the Blackwater Sea, not because the current manor lord was very strong. Instead, it was because the current manor lord's grandfather was a sovereign martial emperor known as the Jadeite Sovereign. Although the Jadeite Mountain Manor was only a rank 8 faction, it was very popular in the Blackwater Sea. Even some of the peak 9 ranks of the great families had to give the Jadeite sovereign a lot of face. However, as far as Xiao Chen knew, this Jadeite sovereign was not ambitious and had a rather gentle personality. The Jadeite sovereign was not very interested in developing his faction. He spent most of his time traveling the starry heavens and rarely returned to the Jadeite Mountain Manor. However, no matter how gentle the Jadeite sovereign was, he was still a sovereign martial emperor. His fame was sufficient to intimidate everyone. As Xiao Chen watched the merchant group move further away, he entered deep thought. Then, he put away the invitation and muttered to himself, "I just made a move, and I already ran into such trouble. A faction that even dares to offend the Jadeite Mountain Manor definitely has an extraordinary background." As for the middle-aged blue-robed emperor on the merchant ship, he felt so much regret that his intestines turned green. In a moment of greed, he ended up getting involved in a conflict between a large faction. Even if he could make it to Black Water City, he might not be able to leave the Black Sea alive. Before the Heavenly Sea, Xiao Chun arrived at a small island. He prepared to rest for the night before continuing on his way. What he saw and heard on the island gave him a deeper understanding of the chaos of the Black Sea. Along the way, Xiao Chun ran into 10 odd fights. In every fight, someone would die. Human life was as cheap as grass. This was a place where one's fist did the talking. This was the undisguised law of the jungle. Most of the fights were trivial matters. Often, the slightest disagreement would lead to a fight. After living in the Black Sea for a long time and absorbing the mysterious substance in the air, one would become extremely irritable and find it hard to control one's heart. During this period, Xiao Chun also ran into some trouble. After he decisively killed a superior-grade martial sage, the problem lessened significantly. After arriving in the city, Xiao Chun found an inn to stay in. After taking a hot bath, Xiao Chun sat cross-legged on the bed and prepared to cultivate. The instant Xiao Chun closed his eyes, all sorts of mockery entered his ears. There was the sound of people fighting over the loot, men and women moaning in the same room, and miserable screams on the street. It was very noisy, making it hard for him to calm down. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chun treated this as a test to temper his mental state. Then, he circulated his energy and continued cultivating. Xiao Chun's cultivation of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantations 7th layer was almost complete. He only needed to break through 5 more meridians and undergo a lightning tribulation before he could advance to the 8th layer. For the entire night, Xiao Chun carefully tried to see if he could break through one of the bottlenecks. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chun immediately paid his bill and left, continuing his journey unhurriedly. Naturally, his destination was the largest city in the Black Water Sea, Black Water City. After leaving the island, Xiao Chun flew 70 or 80 kilometers close to the surface of the sea, cautiously scanning the surroundings with his spiritual sense. Finally, he stopped and landed on a protruding reef in the sea. Xiao Chun focused his spiritual sense into a line and looked carefully at the target he discovered. After a while, he withdrew his spiritual sense, and his expression turned strange. Unexpectedly, he met someone familiar here. Furthermore, it was someone he had not expected. 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun and a man strolled on the surface of the sea. This man was called Xia Luo, a descendant of a legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Thunder Fire Sovereign. He possessed startling cultivation and was a rather famous, outstanding young talent. Historically, the Thunder Fire Sovereign had once unified the Black Sea. Unfortunately, he only managed to do so for less than 100 years before his death. As a result, the Xia clan's strength plummeted. Now, it could only be considered one of the 9th ranks of the great families that was pretty strong, far from being a holy land. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense caught Xia Luo repeatedly trying to curry favor with Yu Bingyun, trying to find an opportunity to say such words. Unfortunately, Yu Bingyun maintained a distance, preventing him from doing so. Bingyun, what is your purpose? Ever since Xia Luo accidentally met Yu Bingyun on the sea, he had been shocked and immediately latched onto her, intending to use his charm to subdue this holy daughter from the heavenly starry ocean. Unfortunately, it did not seem to have any effect. Yu Bingyun said very politely, "Young Master Xia, I've said it before. It would be better to address me by my full name. My current destination is Black Water City." What a coincidence! My destination is also Black Water City. It looks like we can travel together, Xia Luo immediately said. Actually, his destination was not Black Water City but a remnant at the bottom of the sea. Yu Bingyun smiled helplessly. Naturally, she knew where the coincidence came from. However, it did not matter. If the other party wanted to follow, then let him. There would always be a way to shake him off. Chapter 1142. Just at this moment, a group of pirates riding mutated beasts galloped on the surface of the sea. They rode the water from afar, kicking up huge waves. Then, they appeared as fast as lightning and blocked the two's path. Pirate robberies happened every day in the Black Sea. It was not strange at all. On the reef, Xiao Chun thought, this group of pirates is pretty strong. They should be able to force out some of Yu Bingyun's true strength. However, the situation did not develop as Xiao Chun expected. When the Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo, saw this group of pirates riding mutated beasts, he rejoiced in his heart. He had been worrying about not having a chance to show off. This group of pirates really came at the right time. Hiding the joy in his heart, Xia Luo put on a furious expression and said, "Bunch of trash! Quickly scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Haha. Where did this by face come from? Are you trying to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? Kneel and beg for mercy, and we can spare your life. However, you have to leave this woman behind. That's right. We are not interested in men. If you want to live, then scram. The group of pirates guffawed, ignoring Xia Luo's words. They all looked at Yu Bingyun with glowing eyes. In their eyes, Yu Bingyun was like a fairy. Her figure was exquisite and exquisite. She had an extraordinary air, and her skin was like rosy clouds. Her beautiful eyes were like limpid autumn waters, giving her a boundless charm. The more the mighty pirate leader looked at Yu Bingyun, the more tempted he became. Eventually, he could not help roaring, "Kill this by face and snatch this woman back." Xia Luo stepped forward and blocked Yu Bingyun. He said, "Bingyun, leave these pieces of trash to me. Don't dirty your hands." Right after Xia Luo spoke, he formed hand seals and quickly threw a palm strike. Clumps of profound flame imprints flew into the bodies of the charging pirates. The profound flame imprints seemed to be incorporeal. In an instant, they entered the bodies of these pirates. No matter how they tried to block them, it was useless. These pirates found this strange. However, after they circulated their energies and discovered that there were no major problems, they continued charging over with sinister smiles. Acting all mysterious. "Watch this old man tear you apart." Dozens of pirates leaped into the air and charged towards him. If he was surrounded, he would be in big trouble. Xia Luo smiled coldly and said, "Reckless. You don't even know my Xia clan's thunder fire mark? Die." With a loud shout, Xia Luo pointed a finger at the sky. A bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, followed by the sound of thunder. The instant the thunder boomed, the body of the martialist who had been imprinted by the fire seal instantly turned red. Then, there was a loud explosion. His body was like gunpowder, exploding until there was nothing left of his flesh and blood. It was a tragic sight. The rumbling thunder was like the fuse of dynamite. In an instant, more than half of the pirates surrounding Xia Luo were killed. The remaining people who did not die were frightened out of their wit. Xia Luo forced them to retreat repeatedly in a sorry state. The pirate leader on the exotic beast cried out inwardly. He hurriedly said, "Retreat!" The many pirates who had long lost the will to fight immediately retreated like a receding tide, disappearing from the duo's vision. Xia Luo was in high spirits, a pleased smile on his face. He turned his head and asked, "Bingyun, are you all right?" Yu Bingyun's expression did not change at all. She said politely, "Young Master Xia, it is better to address me as Yu Bingyun. Many thanks for helping out earlier." Xia Luo's expression turned somewhat awkward. He said, "It's good that you are fine. This journey is very dangerous. Pirates come and go frequently. However, with me around, I can guarantee Miss Yu's safety." On the reef, Xiao Chun felt somewhat disappointed. If Xia Luo had not made a move, Yu Bingyun would have had to save herself. Xiao Chun would have been able to unravel the other party's mysterious veil and see how strong she was. However, this Xia Luo's martial technique also piqued Xiao Chun's curiosity. After imbuing the thunder fire mark into the martialist's body with thunder, it was incomparably profound. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chun gained some understanding of the principles of this thunder fire mark. After he figured it out, He realized that it was not as miraculous as it looked. The fire mark, which looked like it was made of good materials, would shatter the moment it came in contact with a cultivator's protective quintessence, turning into countless tiny imprints that pierced through the protective quintessence like air. After that, the imprints would stick to the cultivator's skin through the pores. Naturally, when one looked into the body, one would not discover anything strange about it. As for how to use thunder and lightning to gather these scattered imprints and explode them, one could only figure it out after reading the secret manual for the thunder fire mark. Just by observing it, one could only get a rough idea. However, for Xiao Chun to be able to see this far, he already had a way to break this thunder fire mark. This trip to the Black Sea had given Xiao Chun many pleasant surprises. This trip had not been in vain. Be it the world hunt of that pirate leader or this Xia Luo's thunder fire mark, they were all unique martial techniques that broadened his horizons. "Hey, Miss Yu, can we go now?" After dealing with the pirates, Yu Bingyun was not in a rush to leave. She seemed to have made some new discoveries, so Xia Luo asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyun seemed to have confirmed something. She smiled and said, "There's no rush. I met a friend. Let's wait for him." "Friend? Where is he? Why don't I see him?" An anxious expression flashed in Xia Luo's eyes as he looked around. However, he did not discover Xiao Chen, who was 50 kilometers away. He did not know who Yu Bingyun was referring to. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly. Then, she turned her head and spoke in sign language. "Young Master Xiao, how much longer are you going to keep watching?" This stunned Xiao Chen, who had been observing from the reef. Even from 50 kilometers away, Yu Bingyun had discovered his presence. "What sharp senses! You are much stronger than this Xia Luo," Xiao Chen muttered to himself. He guessed that Yu Bingyun must have sensed him when he used his spiritual sense to scan the other party. Since he had already been discovered, there was no need to continue hiding. Xiao Chen pushed off the water and executed Thunder Dragon Step. 3 lightning dragons swam in the water. 4 lightning dragons danced at the sides, and 3 circled above Xiao Chen's head. The Thunder Dragon Steps, modified from the Blue Dragon Cloud soaring art, was mighty and more suitable for Xiao Chen. He could use it as he pleased. In combat, it was even more compatible with his martial technique. After about 7 minutes, Xiao Chen easily arrived 50 kilometers away. He pushed off the water, and 10 lightning dragons entered his body. The mighty aura instantly vanished, demonstrating Xiao Chen's strong control over the Thunder Dragon Step. He could use it as he pleased, advancing and retreating with a thought. Xiao Chen slowly landed beside Yu Bingyun. When he landed, he did not cause any splash. He said calmly, "This is a little unexpected. Unexpectedly, I ran into Miss Yu here. Haha. Why is it that only you are allowed to come to the Black Sea for experiential training, but not me? I also have the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor," Yu Bingyun said softly with a smile. "Young Master Xia, let me introduce you. This is my friend, Mo Yun, from the Kunlun continent." Mo Yun? Xiao Chen wondered why Yu Bingyun helped him hide his identity. However, this was fine. Although not many people knew about the Blue Dragon King in the Black Sea, he could use an alias to save himself some trouble. Xiao Chen did not deny it, taking it as acquiescence. Xia Luo smiled straightforwardly. After greeting Xiao Chen, he asked, "I wonder, where is Brother Mo's destination?" "Black Water City," Xiao Chen answered honestly. Xia Luo's expression changed, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Then, he smiled strangely and said, "Is that so? Brother Mo, think carefully and see if you remembered wrong." This was already a clear threat, telling Xiao Chen to change his itinerary and not disturb his time with Yu Bingyun. Crazy! Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. Then, he looked at the other party indifferently and said, "I know better than you whether I remembered wrong or not. There is no need for Brother Xia to worry." When Xia Luo heard this, his expression turned exceptionally sullen. Unexpectedly, This fellow did not understand his clear hint. Yu Bingyan smiled and said, "In that case, it looks like I can travel with young Master Mo on this trip to Blackwater City." As Yu Bingyan spoke, she completely ignored Xia Luo, upsetting the other party. Blackwater City Island was the core island of the Blackwater Sea. It was astonishingly vast, so vast that it could no longer be simply called an island. Even the blue-robed emperor would have to spend a lot of time to explore every place. Of course, this was just to explore every place. If one wanted to study it seriously, even 100 years would not be enough. The terrain of the island was extremely complicated. There were mountains, plains, deserts, snowy lands, and all sorts of other landforms. The ruins of the ancient era could be found everywhere, attracting many experts to adventure there. Historically, the many islands of the Black Sea had once been a complete continent. It had its own glorious period, with many heroes, overlords, powerful sovereigns, and legendary martial emperors. Stars twinkled, looking resplendent and glorious. However, as time passed, after the continent shattered, very few people remembered that period of history. Xiao Chen's group of 3 headed for Blackwater City did not move very fast. The main reason was that Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun wanted to gain experiential training, to see what was different about the Black Sea cultivators. After walking for half a month, the group saw the outline of Blackwater Island. In this half a month, Xiao Chen had had enough of the legendary Thunderfire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Xia Luo felt that he would definitely be able to recreate the Thunderfire Sovereign's glorious feat one day, so he looked down on Xiao Chen from the bottom of his heart. Furthermore, Xiao Chen did not know how to adapt to circumstances, ruining his chance to be alone with Yu Bingyun. This made Xia Luo feel even more upset and depressed. If not for Yu Bingyun being present, Xia Luo would have attacked Xiao Chen long ago to teach him a lesson. "There is a small town in front. We can rest there for the night and rush to Blackwater City at daybreak. My Xia clan is rather famous in Blackwater City. When we get to the city, I can introduce Miss Yu to the famous blue-robed emperor experts of Blackwater City." As Xia Luo said this, he glanced at Xiao Chen casually, putting on an aloof air. Xiao Chen felt speechless. Femme fatale. This Xia Luo looked like someone with some strength and was not stupid. However, after getting infatuated with Yu Bingyun, it was like water got into his head. Xia Luo's actions were all childish. For example, he started to flaunt his clan. This made Xiao Chen feel that it was ridiculous. Chapter 1143. Since we have arrived at Blackwater Island, let's part ways for now. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't disturb the two of you any longer. Not willing to stay any longer, Xiao Chen prepared to take his leave. Who knew, Xia Luo, who had been displeased with Xiao Chen along the way, interjected before Yu Bingyun could say anything. "Young Master Mo, since we are already at Blackwater Island, why the rush to leave? Don't refuse to give me face. No matter what, I have to do my duty as a host. It was hard for me to bear with you for such a long time. Now that I've finally reached my territory, it won't be easy for me to leave." Xia Luo steeled his heart. No matter what method he had to use, he had to make Xiao Chen stay, to let him know the consequences of interrupting him. Xiao Chen looked at Xia Luo's expression. When the other party raised his eyebrows, he knew what Xia Luo was planning. Originally, he didn't want to cause any more trouble, but now he was really angry. "If you want to play, I'll play with you. Let's see who cries more in the end." He immediately smiled and said, "Is that so? As a super city of the Black Sea, I have long been curious about Blackwater City. Since young Master Xia is willing to entertain me, I will not leave." Xia Luo sneered in his heart. "You are smiling now, but when the time comes, you won't even be able to cry even if you want to." However, Xia Luo put on a warm expression. Yu Bingyun, who was at the side, was very smart. Naturally, she knew what Xia Luo was thinking. However, she did not feel worried for Xiao Chen. Given Xia Luo's level, He was too naive to think that he could play such tricks on Xiaochen. In the heavenly starry ocean, the holy scions of the immortal Holy Lands were all traumatized by Xiaochen. A declining clan with a glorious ancestor was far from sufficient. In her heart, she also looked forward to the matter of the heavenly origin pill that Xiaochen left behind. However, due to Xia Luo sticking to her, it was not convenient for her to ask about it. I should have a chance to ask Xiaochen about it when I check into the inn tonight. Night came earlier in the Black Sea than in other places. In the middle of the night, through the dark clouds, apart from a hazy bright moon, no stars could be seen. Dong dong dong. Knocking came from the door to Xiaochen's room. Xiaochen, who was cultivating cross-legged, opened his eyes and sent out his spiritual sense. It was Yu Bingyun. Xiaochen opened the door with a wave of his hand and said indifferently, "I thought you had forgotten about the heavenly origin pill. It looks like you still remember." Yu Bingyun walked over and asked softly, "How is it? Did you succeed?" Whoosh! An exquisite jade bottle flew towards Yu Bingyun. Yu Bingyun's slender, snow-white hands gracefully caught the jade bottle. Yu Bingyun opened the jade bottle and gently sniffed it. Her usually calm face could not help revealing a trace of joy. She closed the bottle cap and said, "Many thanks, Xiaochen. This time, I owe you a huge favor." "There's no need to be so polite. It's not difficult for me to refine this heavenly origin pill. After all, you've prepared 100 sets of materials. No matter what, you'll succeed at least one set." Xiaochen appeared rather calm at Yu Bingyun's excitement. He would not be able to gain too much advantage from this woman. If he could draw a line between them, it would be best to do so. Yu Bingyun put away the jade bottle and did not dwell on this topic. She glanced at Xiaochen and asked, "I wonder, why did young Master Xiao appear in the Black Sea? Do you have a plan?" Naturally, Xiaochen would not tell her his plan. He smiled and said, "My appearance in the Black Sea is easy to explain. What about you? As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, why did you come out alone? Are you not afraid of an accident?" Yu Bingyun smiled and said, "As the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, barring any accidents, I will be the next Lunar Palace master. Naturally, the person in charge of the Lunar Palace cannot be a flower vase in a greenhouse. The Black Sea is the best cultivation ground for the blue-robed emperor. It is not strange for me to be here." Xiaochen kept feeling that the other party definitely had a purpose for appearing in the Black Sea. Since Yu Bingyun was not willing to say, naturally, he would not keep asking. The two chatted casually for a while. Then, Yu Bingyun stood up and took her leave. Before she left, she suddenly turned her head back and said, "You had best not leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. Otherwise, you might miss out on something that you will regret for life." Before the 15th, Xiaochen thought of the invitation in his hand. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly chased after Yu Bingyun. "Are you talking about the Jadeite Mountain Manners ceremony?" This time, it was Yu Bingyun's turn to find it strange. "How did you know about this?" "Right now, not many people know about this." Xiaochen took out his invitation. Yu Bingyun received it and took a look. Then, she smiled and said, "You are really confident. The manor lord of this Jadeite Mountain Manor even prepared an invitation. Do you really think that you will succeed? Are you not afraid of making a fool of yourself? What exactly is it? Can't you tell me a little in advance?" Yu Bingyun shook her head and said, "I really can't tell you this. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, it will not be good for either of us. You just have to remember not to leave Blackwater City before the 15th of next month. If you are lucky enough, your chances of advancing to Martial Emperor in 5 years will be much higher." When Xiaochen heard this, he suddenly felt the invitation in his hand become exceptionally heavy. The mysterious Yu Bingyun had piqued Xiaochen's curiosity to the extreme. However, the other party was not willing to reveal anything. It is not late anymore. You should stop cultivating and have a good sleep. Have a good dream." Yu Bingyun smiled sweetly. Unconsciously, she revealed a perfect air that could topple all living things, one that could topple cities. Xiao Chen was not in the mood to appreciate it. He smiled bitterly and said, "Do you think that I can sleep peacefully with my current curiosity?" Yu Bingyan bit her lip and pondered. After hesitating for a while, she looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Very well. I can only tell you that the Jadeite Mountain Manor's ceremony, this time, has something to do with a divine weapon. Furthermore, this divine weapon has a strong connection to the heart of an emperor." After sending off Yu Bingyun with his eyes, Xiao Chen still could not figure out the connection. He knew too little. "Ao Jiao, what do you think it is?" "If I guessed right, the ceremony should be for the Jadeite Mountain Manor to have a divine weapon enter the divine weapon ranking, becoming one of the 10 strongest divine weapons in the world. There have been many such ceremonies in history." Xiao Chen suddenly understood. Aside from this, there was indeed no other ceremony that could be connected to a divine weapon. Divine weapons could rival emperor-grade secret treasures. There were many of them, but only 10 of them could enter the divine weapon ranking, known as transcendent divine weapons. Transcendent divine weapons could intimidate sovereign martial emperors, comparable to primordial emperor-grade secret treasures. As far as Xiao Chen knew, the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian and the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyun dared to fight with primes because they had the coiling monarch time saber and the scarlet firmament void sword. This showed how strong the transcendent divine weapons on the divine weapon ranking were. After figuring this out, the other clues immediately made sense. The merchant group that Xiao Chen saw when he entered the Black Sea should be carrying the supplementary divine materials for breaking into a transcendent divine weapon. Xiao Chen also understood why Yu Bingyan appeared. As far as he knew, the startling Phoenix Zither, a transcendent divine weapon ranked 10th on the divine weapon ranking, was in the hands of the Lunar Palace. If another divine weapon succeeded in breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, the heavenly Phoenix Zither, ranked 10th, would definitely fall. The reason was none other than the fact that only 10 divine weapons were allowed on the divine weapon ranking. As long as a new divine weapon made it into the divine weapon ranking, the one ranked last would definitely fall, becoming an ordinary divine weapon. Yu Bingyun's purpose in coming here was to stop the Jadeite Mountain Manor's Manor Lord from breaking into a transcendent divine weapon, preventing the startling Phoenix Zither from falling off the divine weapon ranking. When Xiao Chen thought about it carefully, the Lunar Palace probably sent people to look for the pirates that came to rob the merchant ship. With this connection made sense, all the clues connected in Xiao Chen's mind. He now understood the entire sequence of events. All that was left was the connection between the divine weapon and the heart of an emperor. This was simple. He just needed to find out the origins of the divine weapon that the Jadeite Mountain Manor possessed. "Ao Jiao, thank you," Xiao Chen said with a smile, revealing joy on his face. Ao Jiao, who was in the Immortal Spirit Ring, smiled faintly and said, "You cannot see clearly because you are closely involved. Given your intelligence, if you were a bystander, you would definitely be able to see more clearly than me." Bang! Just at this moment, just as Xiao Chen was about to answer, the door to the room suddenly shattered. A strong, knife-like wind blew in. Chapter 1144. Many of the decorations in the room were shredded to pieces. Clanging sounds rang out incessantly. The originally quiet room suddenly turned into a mess. Xia Luo stood outside the door with a furious expression. He retracted his hand and said coldly, "Brat, I gave you face, but you do not want it. Why did you Bingyan come to your room? Tell me everything in detail." A murderous intent flashed in Xiao Chen's heart. He suppressed the rage in his heart and stood up. Then, he asked indifferently, "Is there a need to tell you?" "Ha ha. Good. Very good." Xia Luo's killing qi surged all over his body. He smiled coldly as he stared at Xiao Chen. "The ignorant are truly ignorant. Originally, I was planning to let you live and deal with you when we reach Black Water City. It looks like there is no need to do so now. Die." Xia Luo roared ferociously, and a fierce electric fire burned on his body. A berserk electric light surged out of his body. In that instant, the electric light blasted the entire inn apart. The warriors staying in the inn were like frightened birds and beasts. They all rushed out, not daring to stay in the same place for a moment. They were afraid that they would get involved in the battle between the experts. Amid the electric light, Xia Luo was like a thunder god. His aura was unparalleled. When he punched, thousands of electric bolts burning with flames appeared. When Xia Luo punched at Shao Qin, his rage soared. He used his full power in this punch, not holding anything back at all. Berserk thunder rumbled, not stopping for even a moment. Xia Luo's punch displayed a strong and horrifying explosive force. It was clear that he wanted to kill Shao Qin with one punch. That's right. The accumulations of the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's bloodline cannot be underestimated. Even though it had declined significantly, Xia Luo's strength was still remarkable and qualified to be arrogant. Of course, Xia Luo was only slightly knowledgeable. In Shao Qin's eyes, this was far from sufficient. Shao Qin, who was seated, suddenly stood up. His heavenly seal moved with a thought. 10,000 strands of law energy drove the surging power of the world with a thought. The rock hates the sky for being too low when it spreads its wings. When Shao Qin punched as well, a huge Kunpeng that covered half the sky soared up behind him. The shattered and immediately turned into powder and vanished. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Shao Qin did not move at all. However, when he moved at full power, his aura instantly suppressed Xia Luo. Without giving Xia Luo any time to be shocked, the instant the two fists collided, Xia Luo vomited blood and flew back. Yu Bingyun hovered high in the sky. A consummation Emperor Wu with a horrifying cultivation stood behind her. "Is that your friend?" the old man asked Yu Bingyun as he pointed to Xia Luo. Yu Bingyun shook her head. "Naturally not." "That's good. This person's character is extremely terrible. His reputation in the Black Sea is not very good either." The old man nodded. Then, he pointed to Shao Qin and asked, "How is that person related to young Miss?" "He was the one who killed the leader of our first batch of people, the Blood Wolf pirate group." Yu Bingyun sighed softly. After asking about the details, she understood. She said, "He is my friend. This should just be a misunderstanding. He does not have any connection to the Jadeite Mountain Manor. Is the plan ready?" "It is ready." The old man whispered, "I can guarantee that the Jadeite Mountain Manor will lose more than they gain on the 15th of next month." As the two spoke, the battle below slowly came to an end. After Shao Qin sent Xia Luo flying with a punch, he fell into a rhythm of getting beaten up. Many of the cultivators staying in the town recognized Xia Luo. When they saw him getting beaten up so miserably, their faces filled with surprise. "Who is this white-clad youth? How come he dares to beat up the Xia clan's people? He is really strong." Among the younger generation of Black Water City, this Xia Luo is considered quite a character. Unexpectedly, he got beaten up so miserably at his own home. Xia Luo, who had been beaten up to the point of losing his temper, howled in agony. He no longer had any of his earlier tyranny. He glared hatefully at Shao Qin before rushing back to Black Water City. Shao Qin stood upright with his hands behind his back. He did not give chase, letting Xia Luo flee in a sorry state. "This is going to be somewhat problematic. The Xia clan is very powerful in Black Water City." "You were too rash," Yu Bingyun said slowly as she landed. Shao Qin did not care. He said, "There are more than 100 million people in the city, comparable to a large nation. No matter how powerful the Xia clan is, they will not find me that easily. There will be a blue-robed emperor-level auction in Black Water City soon. Are you interested in going?" Clearly, Yu Bingyun did not care about Xia Luo's matter. She mentioned something else and extended an invitation to Shao Qin. Sure. Right now, Shao Qin had more than 100 million black astral coins. He felt some anticipation for this blue-robed emperor-level auction. Perhaps he might be able to find some equipment that he wanted. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun arrived before Blackwater City at the same time. The black city walls were like a dragon forged of steel, coiled on the ground. There was no sunlight shining on the dark space. However, there was a restrained glow that flickered on the city walls, looking extremely mysterious. This ring of city walls probably had other mysteries, containing many divine materials. Even if a martial emperor attacked, he might not be able to destroy the city in an instant. As Yu Bingyun looked at the city walls, she also felt moved. She said, "The rank of this city is not low. It can be considered a rank 8 city. It can block an ordinary Emperor Wu. Cities are divided into ranks." Xiao Chen asked out of curiosity. Yu Bingyun smiled gently and said, "That is natural. There are numbers from 1 to 9. The higher the rank, the better. After rank 9 is the strongest holy city." Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Then, he thought about the newly built Heaven Dragon City. Based on what Imochen said, it was not weaker than Bright Moon City. So he asked, "What rank is Bright Moon City?" Pride flashed on Yu Bingyun's face. She said, "Of course, Bright Moon City is a holy city that surpasses rank 9. Furthermore, it has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. After accumulating continuously, it is worthy of the title of Immortal Holy City. It is one of the strongest holy cities in the entire oceanic world." In that case, it looked like the rank of Heaven Dragon City was not bad either. It could be considered a holy city as well. However, it was still a distance away from the Immortal Holy City. In the future, Xiao Chen would see if he could think of other ways to catch up to the accumulations of these Immortal Holy Cities. Speaking of which, how many Immortal Holy Cities are there in the oceanic world that are worthy of the title of the strongest holy city? After paying the entrance tax, the two entered the city and started chatting. Yu Bingyun knew a lot about such information. She immediately answered, 7. There is an immortal holy city in each vast sea region. In the heavenly starry ocean is Bright Moon City. In the Penglai Sea is Penglai City. In the Black Sea is the Core Sea Domain, the Dark Sea's Dark City. This was the first time Xiao Chen heard about this, so he felt somewhat curious. He continued asking, "What about the other 4? Could it be that aside from these 3 sea domains there are other sea domains?" "There definitely are. However, it is useless to tell you now. The oceanic world is practically endless. Even the overlord Neptune does not dare to say that it understands every sea domain." As the two chatted, they entered an inn. After ordering some food and eating, they headed for the rooms that they had reserved for each other. Xiao Chen stopped the manservant who came to collect the clothes and gave him 100 black astral coins. He wanted the manservant to figure out the details of the Jadeite Mountain Manor's divine weapon within 4 hours. This was all public information. The Jadeite Mountain Manor was very famous in Blackwater City. As long as the locals spent some time, they would be able to obtain it easily. When the manservant saw the 100 black astral coins, he felt that it was no different from taking it for free. He quickly agreed with a wide smile on his face. Sitting cross-legged on his thighs, Xiao Chen continued to temper himself, merging the 5 different attributes into his saber soul. At the same time, in a courtyard belonging to the Xia clan in Blackwater City, Xia Luo spoke to an old man with a sullen expression. This old man was called Wang Zhen. 3 years ago, he successfully broke through to great perfection blue-robed emperor, becoming a consummation blue-robed emperor who formed a soul for his heavenly seal. From then on, Wang Zhen became the person in charge of the Xia clan in Blackwater City, managing all the Xia clan's factions in Blackwater City. All Wang Zhen needed to do was accumulate enough and clear the great tribulation of wind and fire. Then, he could make his breakthrough to Emperor Wu. However, if he failed the great tribulation of wind and fire, he would most likely die. Even if he accumulated enough, he might not have the courage or confidence to undergo the great tribulation of wind and fire. How bold! How dare he bully our Xiaoclan so openly? Second young master, don't worry. Leave this matter to this old man. As long as I find this person, I will cripple him on the spot. A murderous intent flashed in Wang Zhen's eyes. With his consummation blue-robed emperor cultivation, killing a great perfection blue-robed emperor would be a piece of cake. After Shao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal, not only would he be able to drive the power of the world much purer than the great perfection blue-robed emperor, but he would also be able to do it more easily. This was a qualitative difference from the great perfection blue-robed emperor. The most important thing was that after Shao Chen merged his soul into the heavenly seal had already become the vague form of the heart of an emperor. At this moment, unless a cultivator's head was chopped off or their heart was shattered, it would be very difficult for them to deal any fatal damage to the consummation blue-robed emperor. Now, the blue-robed emperor's sage body strengthened once more, becoming infinitely close to the golden emperor body. Xia Luo's expression turned sinister as he said sullenly, "There is no rush for now. 3 days from now, Blackwater City will hold a blue-robed emperor-level auction. At that time, I will be able to obtain a few treasures, and my strength will improve by leaps and bounds." Wang Zhen was very meticulous and immediately understood Xia Luo's meaning. The second young master wanted to personally defeat that white-clad man to wash away his shame. No problem. I will listen to second young master. Back at the inn, Shao Chen exited his cultivation state. Of the 5 high-grade attributes, Shao Chen could already perfectly merge death and massacre into his saber soul. Now, he could form 100% compatible saber soul and a death saber soul. Their might was not much weaker than the lightning saber soul. If Shao Chen could cultivate these 2 states into wills, they would be no weaker than the lightning saber soul. At that time, his combat prowess would not be much weaker than a consummation blue-robed emperor's. Dong! 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 There was knocking on the door, and a manservant popped his head out with a smile. Then, he handed a complete set of information to Shao Chen. The manservant's efficiency was faster than he expected. Shao Chen rewarded him with some black astral coins before sending the manservant away. Shao Chen wanted to see what kind of divine weapon this jadeite mountain manor had. As Shao Chen looked carefully and flipped through the information page by page, the expression on Shao Chen's face turned increasingly grave. He could not suppress the excitement on his face. Chapter 1145. The jadeite mountain manor's divine weapon was called the Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword. It was left behind by the jadeite sovereign, who no longer managed the jadeite mountain manor. The Heavenly Cloud Jadeite Sword was not forged by the jadeite sovereign. Its original name was not that either. Instead, it was called the Heavenly Blood Sword. This was the sword of another legendary martial emperor of the Black Sea, the Blood Sword Sovereign. The glory that the Blood Sword Sovereign once created was even more dazzling than that of Xia Luo's ancestor, the Thunder Fire Sovereign. Aside from the Blood Sword Sovereign's human bloodline, he also had the bloodline of the Deep Abyss demonic world's blood race, a mixed blood of humans and demons. However, the Blood Sword Sovereign's history was too ancient. Before the Black Sea continent shattered, he had already died. The legends he left behind only existed in ancient books. There was only one story that spread far and wide, the Blood Sword Sovereign forming the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. He became the first person to do so, shaking the entire Kunlun realm. In the history of the martial epoch, no one had formed a complete heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. The heavenly seal infused into the soul was only the vague form of the heart of an emperor, far from the true heart of an emperor. Only those who cleared the great tribulation of wind and fire, reforged their golden body, and successfully pushed open the emperor's door could possess the heart of an emperor. However, this blood-sword sovereign broke this rule, becoming the only person in history to possess the heart of an emperor before advancing to martial emperor. Xiao Chen's hand nearly trembled as he held the information. If he could grasp this secret technique and condense the heart of an emperor, he would be able to resolve the problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal. The problem of infusing the soul into the heavenly seal would naturally be solved when he reached great perfection blue-robed emperor and consummation blue-robed emperor. The principle was very simple. When one merged the soul into the heavenly seal, it only formed the vague form of the heart of an emperor. If one condensed the complete heart of an emperor in advance, why would one care about a vague form? This was the opportunity that Yu Bingyun mentioned. After putting down the information, Xiao Chen calmed down. If this secret technique was so easy to find, there would have been a second person who condensed the heart of an emperor in advance after tens of thousands of years. Could the crux of the secret technique for condensing the heart of an emperor be related to the Jadeite Mountain Manor's heavenly cloud Jadeite sword? With limited information, this was all that Xiao Chen could think of. The secret technique to condense the heart of an emperor in advance was definitely related to the heavenly cloud Jadeite sword. However, what kind of connection did it have with the heavenly cloud Jadeite sword becoming a transcendent divine weapon? As for Yu Bingyun's position in this matter, no one knew. Putting down the documents, Xiao Chen rubbed his head. There was no point in thinking too much. He just had to wait for the 15th of the next month. At that time, all the answers would be revealed. For now, he would concentrate on his cultivation. 3 days later, he would go to the blue-robed emperor-level auction house to take a look and see if he could gain anything. Otherwise, he would have nowhere to spend his hundreds of millions of black astral coins. That would be rather depressing. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yu Bingyun knocked on the door punctually, inviting Xiao Chen to come with her. As the name suggested, only the blue-robed emperor was allowed to participate in the blue-robed emperor-level auction. Such an auction could not be held in an ordinary city. There was no other reason other than the fact that they could not gather many blue-robed emperors. With only 4 or 5 people, there was no competition at all. How could they possibly open an auction? However, such an auction could definitely be held in Blackwater City. Furthermore, the scene would be extremely lively. The Black Sea was the best experiential training ground for the blue-robed emperor. Its reputation was not undeserved. There were many blue-robed emperor experts in Blackwater City. While one could not see them just by looking up, with a few more steps, one would definitely run into 1 or 2 blue-robed emperors. The auction house was known as the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The major faction behind it was the Heavenly Cauldron Gate, which was no weaker than a holy land. There were also several sovereign martial emperors, all of whom had connections to the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. The Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, which had a frighteningly strong backer, had already organized the blue-robed emperor-level auction for several hundred years. No one had ever dared to cause trouble. Slowly, this blue-robed emperor-level auction became a major event in Blackwater City. It attracted nearly 80% of the blue-robed emperors in the entire Blackwater Sea. There were even blue-robed emperors in the neighboring Black Wind Sea and Blackfire Sea, who came because of its fame, hoping to find a treasure. When Xiao Chen and Yu Bingyun rushed to the street where the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion was located, they discovered that many cultivators had already gathered in front of the pavilion. There were also several people in the nearby inns and pavilions. They held wine cups as if they were watching the excitement. Occasionally, they would whisper to each other or exclaim in surprise. "What is going on?" Xiao Chen asked out of curiosity. This was Yu Bingyun's first time here as well, so she was not clear on what was going on. She only understood after asking a passerby. It turned out that the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion's blue-robed emperor-level auction tickets were not bought with black astral coins. Instead, cultivators had to prove their strength. The stronger one was, the better the ticket they could obtain. Those with average strength could only obtain ordinary tickets and sit in the hall, unable to enjoy a private room. This was rather interesting. In the other auctions, which one did not treat the blue-robed emperor as an honored guest. Here, one had to rely on one's strength to obtain a ticket. If one was not strong enough, one could only obtain the most ordinary ticket. Under the gaze of so many eyes, it was embarrassing enough to only get a ticket to the main hall. Let's go over and take a look. The two exuded the aura of the blue-robed emperor as they parted the crowd and headed in. When they arrived, they finally saw what was going on. There was 100-meter-tall stone stele at the foot of the thousands of steps paved with metal. This was the testing stele for the blue-robed emperor's strength. Rows of gems were embedded in the stele at regular intervals. There were a total of 7 rows, and each row had 10 gems. Not far away, there was an exquisite and profound metal dummy connected to the stele through a formation. Occasionally, the blue-robed emperor would step forward and strike the metal dummy. Then, the gems embedded in the stele would glow continuously. When the two stepped forward, a small perfection blue-robed emperor happened to be there. He mustered his strength and drove the power of the world with all his might. Then, he punched the metal dummy. Bang! There was a deafening sound. A strong wind blew and the clouds churned. The aura and pressure looked very strong. The 10 white gems in the first row on the testing stele all lit up in an instant. The entire stele glowed with a bright white light. After lighting up the 10 gems in the first row, one would obtain the right to enter the auction. However, whether one could obtain the honored guest status and enjoy a private room would depend on the result. The speed at which the 10 blue gems in the second row lit up was clearly much slower. By the time the 300th row of green gems lit up, the speed at which they lit up became even slower. The cultivator standing in front of the metal dummy had a nervous and expectant expression. However, of the 10 gems in the third row, only 5 lit up in the end. The third row is not fully lit up. Sorry, we can only give you the most ordinary ticket. The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion, who was standing at the side, took out a ticket and handed it to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man received the ticket with a depressed expression. I am already a peak small perfection blue-robed emperor, yet I cannot even obtain the honored guest status. What's wrong? You are not convinced? The person in charge of the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion said expressionlessly. I was just saying, the middle-aged man said with an embarrassed smile. After he spoke, he headed straight for the stairs and entered the Heavenly Cauldron Pavilion. How could he not be convinced? This was not a place for a blue-robed emperor to behave atrociously. Even if it were a minor heavenly emperor Wu, he would have to think twice before coming. After that, Xiao Chen looked at a few more people and understood the trick. One had to light up at least 3 rows before they could obtain a honored guest ticket. After that, for every row lit up, they could obtain a private room on a higher level, enjoying better service and benefits. Bang! There was another loud sound, and the stone stele started to change colors rapidly. White, blue, green, red. It only stopped after changing 6 colors. The power of one punch lit up 6 rows of gems. This immediately caused an uproar, attracting the attention of several people. It is another consummation blue-robed emperor character. This is Jin Liangqi. 10 years ago, he was a consummation blue-robed emperor expert. However, he has not shown himself in the past few years. Apparently, he is preparing to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Haha. He probably does not have the guts to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire. Otherwise, he would not have shown himself. Before the envious gazes of the crowd, Jin Liangqi's slightly gloomy face did not change at all. He received the ticket for the honored guest room on the 6th floor and walked over expressionlessly. Xiao Chen thought to himself, it turns out that one needs the strength of a consummation blue-robed emperor to light up the gems on the 6th row. After observing for a long time, Xiao Chen discovered that this testing stone steel was extremely accurate in measuring one's strength. All this while, Xiao Chen did not have a clear idea of the level of his strength. The testing stone steel before him was a good opportunity to see the strongest strength that he could burst out with and how big the gap was between it and those consummation blue-robed emperor existences. Just as Xiao Chen was about to step forward and make a move, a familiar figure walked over. It was the legendary Thunder Fire Sovereign's descendant, Xia Luo. Accompanying Xia Luo was an old man with an extremely strong aura. This was a consummation blue-robed emperor expert. However, when Xiao Chen observed this old man, he found that this old man's aura was weaker than Jin Liangqi's. The difference was obvious. Indeed, as Xia Luo expected, when Jin Liangqi punched the metal puppet, the light changed. Only 3 purple gems on the 6th row lit up. Compared to the 9 purple gems on the 6th row that Jin Liangqi lit up, this was far from enough. After successfully obtaining a VIP room on the 6th floor, Xia Luo followed behind the old man with a cocky expression. There were many hidden talents in Black Water City. The blue-robed emperor-level auction had drawn out all these consummation blue-robed emperors, opening one's horizons. Xiao Chen walked out of the crowd in anticipation, preparing to test which row of gems he could light up. Whoosh! Just as Xiao Chen was about to reach the metal puppet, someone with a strong aura flew over in the air, not even bothering to look at Xiao Chen. This person continued diving down, kicking up a strong wind that was as sharp as a saber. He said coldly, "Scram to the side. Let this young master test first." The strong wind was like a saber, and the aura was like a mountain. This figure arrived with a surging aura. His fearless sharpness forced back the surrounding cultivators watching the excitement. Xiao Chen frowned. Without much time to think, he turned around and sent a palm strike. The other party was too fast. If Xiao Chen hesitated for even a moment, he would get injured.